You're strong.
I know.
It's okay. I've got you now.
Just like in the movies.
SuperWonder Legacy. I am Jared. I'm here with Brit. What's up, Brit?
Hello, hello.
And today we are answering the question, should Superman and Wonder Woman kill? And we're going to talk about what is arguably one of the most contrived and forced drama storylines that's featured Superman and Wonder Woman in a while. We're talking about sacrifice. And the problem with this is that it's not necessarily the idea of the story. It's that, like, the way the characters react. Because Wonder Woman is justified in killing Maxwell Lord. It's just Superman and especially Batman. Because the whole purpose of Batman having contingency plans to take down the Justice League is in case they get mind controlled.
Right.
I'm like, you of all people, Bat should be, and by this is why in Injustice, it's not Superman that's the bad guy. It's Batman. Because if Batman had not, like, kicked Superman to the curb after he killed the Joker, before he killed everyone else and Superman became a dick, before all that, I think Superman would have turned good had Batman approached Superman and gone, hey, listen, dude, it's okay. I know you're not going to kill. You're better than this. It's just the Joker. But again, that shows how fragile Injustice is. And if you pull on a plot thread enough, the whole thing unravels.
Exactly. And as I always call it, it is very much Bizarro Kingdom Come or, something like that, mixed in with The Boys or something. But yeah, Injustice is very much contrived with this high moral thing, it just feels like Superman in that world is, well, one day or one person, sole person away from being evil, and it just makes it feel like has he ever been a good person deep down? And with sacrifice, it really shows how post-crisis Superman was very self-righteous and preachy, um, double standards, very much a hypocrite. And, for him to be mind controlled, a lot of times he's possessed, he's mind controlled, the kryptonite, the magic, the weakness of magic, and everything like that. And for you to be so, Diana did what she had to do because if, okay, so I, if I was an editor or, with the writer or something like that, or Jared being the writer or whatever, and I asked you, okay, so it's like, how would you react to the character becoming possessed? And if Diana were to have let him just go all out and be, mind controlled by Lord, and he killed millions of people, what would the reaction be
All right.
then?
But here's the problem, Britt, with sacrifice and their reaction. Because here's the thing. This whole story starts because Superman is, like, blacking out and he thinks he's fighting, like, Darkseid, but he's beating the crap out of Batman. And
Right.
I'm like, that's where it's even worse. It's not like he just stumbles onto her and this happens. It's like, no, he almost killed Bruce.
Right. So I'm saying, so did all of that just all went out the window? His weak-mindedness, I would say, all of that is not questioned at all. But because Diana made that decision to save him and to save billions of other people, that is what makes her seem like the villain, you know?
I will say it's almost like a certain two content creators made an entire universe around fixing this entire story.
Exactly.
More on that next week, as a matter of fact, I believe. So,
Right.
Yeah. And here's the thing: this is why Charles Sewell is a genius, because at the end of Volume 1 of New 52, this is why I know Tomasi didn't read anything about this book. So in Tomasi's book, Clark finds out that Wonder Woman is the goddess of war, and throws a fit because you didn't tell me. In this, he's like, okay, fine, because he trusts her. And it's like, even when you have Diana's dialogue, she goes, if I can, I'll end war forever. And if I can't, maybe I can pass along some of my understanding, make it more of an absolute last resort. So she's trying to do it to understand war. And if she is the embodiment of war, I mean, she can't really control it, but it's more like she can change the way people perceive it. That's the other thing. Tomasi implies that she controls war and she lives off of it. And I'm like, what the hell, bro? What are you doing?
Well, the contrivance and everything of trying to ruin the book and ruin the relationship. I mean, he did say, basically he wanted to get out of the honeymoon phase and the no drama, no conflict. But honestly, as we've seen now, the transition from Clark and Diana's relationship to bringing back the post-crisis status quo within that transition with Convergence, and then Rebirth and Reborn, and even within Rebirth, Superman, how he would feel joy, I guess, of throwing Diana under the bus.
Mm-hmm.
He and also I think he wrote a Wonder Woman story in Wonder Woman Black and Gold, and it was about basically like her and Hephaestus and a sword and this war and all of this, her being more of like the goddess of war thing. And it was like, you have not learned. That is not Diana. Yes, she has the mantle, but if you read Azzarello's run, she didn't want the mantle as a goddess of war. She doesn't care for it. She is more of the goddess of peace. And the thing is, Charles Soule, he addressed this. Like, I don't know. Well, I do know, but I still don't just understand that that need to ruin a character and a relationship dynamic by basically just the whole rewriting of what was already established.
Well, Brit, it's very simple. You see, I'm going to sing you a little song. Nostalgia. That's what it is. That's why. It's for nostalgia, which is arguably one of the killer. I like nostalgia and it can work. The problem is that a lot of these writers keep it, because everyone's saying that New 52 Superman is dark and brooding and not Superman. And I'm like, first off, I read the book. No, he's not. Second off, look at this. And it's like there were times where he wasn't like this. But anyway, it's like the idea here. See, the problem with some DC fans is that they treat it like these characters should never kill under any circumstances, or have never killed. And as we'll see in this PowerPoint presentation, both of these people have killed. There's been consequences about it in terms of sacrifice, BS consequences, but there have been consequences none the same. And it's one of those things where when I'm watching this, I'm like, that's how I know. Because here's the thing: when people say they have never killed, yeah, they've never killed in the books that you have read. Brit and I are only basing what we say off of what we have read as well. And that's fine. Tell me that. But don't present yourself like this God of all knowledge, like this Metron when it comes to DC lore.
And also, it's not that Clark and Diana are trying to play judge, juror, and executioner. It's not that. It's a very complex situation, and something that I feel that they should go through. Because how are we supposed to feel that these characters are inspirational, aspirational, and if they don't really go through just very difficult situations? And it feels like Mark Waid, he um, has this issue with Superman can do no wrong. He isn't supposed to go through much of anything. And in a sense of, that he has to have like a happy ending. So when he was doing the Kingdom Come, Return to Kingdom Come in the World Finest book, he basically had Maine versus Superman have like this man-child meltdown, saying how Kingdom Come Superman, he failed because of how many people have died, and saying how he just like he gave up, but it wasn't that. Once Maine versus Clark realized the complexity of the situation, he kind of let up, but at the same time, Mark Waid still made it seem like because Kingdom Comes Clark, everything that had happened in that story, because it happened, then he failed as a Superman. And I don't believe that.
Mm-mm.
One, especially with the story being an answer or like a counterpoint of how the 90s were. It was very anti-heroes. You had a lot of deaths. You had a lot of brutal fighting and stuff like that. And where did that come from? Maine versus Superman, having a knockdown drag out, a pointless one at that, um, with Doomsday. So everyone felt like that is how these characters are supposed to be. And then at the end, what happens? I mean, he wrote it. What happens at the end? They all learn that violence is not the answer. Even with Diana's story, she was stripped of everything because she wasn't able to teach peace. And she went out of her way, um, and lost her way, but she found her way back. And then they all learned that to have patience and to find a better way and to, bring the newer generation to understand what it means to um, the whole killing thing, you
Mm-hmm.
know. So this issue with Superman, it really boils down to Superman and how writers just don't want to mess up his image as the poster boy or the golden boy for like this squeaky clean American father type, um, and he's very much spoon fed. With Diana, they simplify her as just this warrior woman, and she is so quick to kill, and they forget that she is the warrior of peace. No, it's not a contradiction, as Tom King says. It's not that. It's just
That's the whole thing, is that they have this opinion that that you can have war and peace existing simultaneously. Well, it's a whole thing of like to prepare. It's like what George Washington said, is that to have peace, you have to be prepared for violence. Because I'm sorry, this is a violent world we live in, doubly so in this universe.
exactly. So again, it's all a complex type of situation, as I said, and with Diana more so, it also comes from this misogynistic view and just the way DC treats her character. that, of course, anything bad happens to Superman and Batman, it can be brushed off.
Hmm.
But for some reason, it's emphasized with Diana, even in Justice. You know, when you see when you see Injustice Wonder Woman and how she is comically evil. I mean, she is.
It's hilarious where when you look at Injustice 1, it's not as bad. That's why it didn't bother me as when I first when I first played Injustice 1, because I'm like, oh, okay, she probably had her reasons, or maybe it's mind control. When Injustice 2 happened, I'm like, what? You doubled down even harder on that.
And within the comics, it's and her reasoning, which is it's still it doesn't make any sense. But her reasoning for being as evil as she is because Steve was a Nazi and hurt her feelings. He betrayed her.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like, okay, so Diana, she would even more so not be on Clark's side. But the thing is, it's it's more of a Superman versus Batman thing, and Wonder Woman. Obviously, they wouldn't put her on Batman's side in that sense. And for some reason, she can't be the voice of reason as she usually is. So, and I think it was also more of like the powerful metahumans versus the street level heroes as well. So, of course, she's going to be on Clark's side, but at the same time, she would be that voice of reason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And that's kind of what she's supposed to do. And that's why I loved her being the god of war. Because if there's anyone that I think it would be, it's interesting to give her that. Because, yeah, you would think it would be a contradiction, but the way she did it, the way they did in the new 52 was well done. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to blast the new 52 for no reason. Speaking of new 52, by the way, remember when Clark almost turned into Doomsday and she was begging him, don't make me do this? Because here's the thing, of the Trinity, and by Trinity, I don't mean Wonder Woman's crappy daughter. I mean Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman. I'm sorry, I have to take that opportunity. Of the Trinity, she is the one most. I'm not gonna say likely. I'm gonna say open to killing. Obviously, as a last resort, and that's the thing. I've maintained that all DC characters, including Batman, will kill. They just won't go into it as a first resort. They will exhaust every other option, but failing all that, I'm sorry, they're gonna do it.
yeah, and I I liked how again we are going to refer to volume one because and within
When
this
this case too,
yeah and within this story because they establish Clark and Diana as their friendship and everything like that, and this goes within the PowerPoint later on too, is that they have that built trust. And the fact that DC has this long history of, again, trying to ruin the dynamic by having them antagonistic towards each other, and not trusting each other. It can either be Clark with his jealousy streak, like from the 18th letter when he thought that Diana was with a another guy, or it can be again, it's really the jealousy thing and everything, and the issue that splits them apart is on Clark and his high morals, and again that hypocrisy. Because again, as Jared mentioned, that Superman has killed, and he killed at first. You can see it in the Superman movie. I think it was Superman 2.
too. It's worse than Superman 2 compared to Man of Steel because he like crushes Zod's hand, smiles, and throws him with full strength against a wall. At least in Man of Steel, he wailed after snapping Zod's neck.
Right. So you have so these characters have had, or Superman has had those type of instances. And yeah, he can either be happy-go-lucky, I'm the hero, and it's okay for me to play judge, juror, and executioner, or
Hmm.
he can have that feeling of this is not what I really wanted to do, because these two characters are they love life,
Hmm.
you know, um, and that is their purpose is to protect all life, even the people or the other um otherworldly beings that don't deserve it, and being evil as that, you know, with them taking innocent lives. But Clark and Diana still have that sort of that way about them that they want people to be redeemed and know what they did was wrong and give them second chances again, even if they don't deserve it.
Yeah.
So when they have to do this, make this hard decision, it is a hard decision. But we have to be shown that they, at some point, they do have to make it. And at the end, it's not going to be where they act so childish towards each other, where they're being judgmental or anything like that. They have to actually go through the process of, the grievances and the remorse, and just understand each other and be patient with each other. And again, to plug, that is the story that we are delving into ourselves.
Yes, and more on that in our next episode because it is very important to this. And again, I love this episode. I love this particular part of the book because it's more like because it shows Diane. It shows it was either an earlier part or a later part of the story where Lois asks. Actually, it was later where Lois asks, "Is that like an agreement you guys have?" Because it's like in this thing, it's established that and this is another reason why the Tom King run is utter BS. Because in the Tom King run, you legit have Steve talking about how, and now this could be the lasso of lies talking or something like that, because the rat thing was kind of like maybe refuted, but it's still, why put it in there? It's like where Steve talks about how they were chasing terrorists, then they stopped to make out and eventually stopped the terrorists. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And then with
Yeah.
this, Diana says, "No, the world. We have an understanding. The world comes first." And I love what Lois says. That's something you said. And then Diana says, "No, it doesn't need to be spoken." The minute we have to say that, that's when the relationship falls apart.
And that is the thing that people miss about the first of all, of course, as we've said, some people do not read. So
Yeah.
they are not seeing these certain points made with Clark and Diana's relationship. So they judge it, and they just take whatever they think, and make it into, they think that it's facts for themselves. But yeah, you see that comparison of how Clark and Diana's relationship is all about putting the world first, but you have it where, ironically, they are with their human love interest, and they are basically like selfish pricks. Diana, the whole terrorist thing. And then you have Clark where he his it's kind of like his humanity and him being a good guy all depends on if he's with Lois or not, you
And
know.
I'm like, if Clark is that close to snapping, what does that say about Clark Kent if he's that close to turning into Injustice Superman?
Right. And that also is a disrespect to the Kents
Yeah.
because they raised him. And again, I don't know how many times we have to say this, but Clark, whether he, well, we did say this in a previous episode, but the Golden Age Superman, he didn't have the Kents at first. He was adopted by a motorcyclist before, and he also was raised in an orphanage. We also saw this within Tomorrowverse as well, is that they sort of mixed in all of those golden age origins with, yeah, he knew the Kents, but he was also raised in an orphanage, and he still became the Superman that he was supposed to be. Yeah, he was a little late within that because he needed, a little push from Diana, but he was still obviously that Superman, whether he had Lois or not.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then Diana too. Steve died in the Tomorrowverse, but at the end of the Tomorrowverse Crisis 3, we see Diana makes the ultimate hero sacrifice.
And I love how Brit hated that at first until I reminded them the
I
world
hated
comes
it
first.
because I hated it. Let me clear this up. I hated it because Clark and Diana, especially Diana, she deserves her happy ending. And just the way that um, you know, she has to make the sacrifice, it's like, of course. However, once I re-watched it, and of course, yeah, talking to you, Jared, it's kind of like, okay, I did get that better understanding of their relationship, and it is very much in character for Diana, as well as she did get her ultimate wish was the world restarting, and she was able to. Obviously, she is going to grow up to be Wonder Woman again, but she is now mortal. She's not the and able to live with Hippolyta and the Amazons as she wanted to.
I will never forget that all of a sudden I get a text one day that's like, oh, I rewatched it. And all of a sudden I get crying cat emojis. Yeah, because all of
Yeah,
a sudden she re-understood it. And I was like, yeah, that's actually
you
that's the
can't.
thing. I understand being like, okay, why won't DC give Super Wonder a happy ending? But when you realize that kind of was the happy ending.
Right. And also, again, I'm very like um cautious about DC, so it's some things that, yeah, I might have to look at it multiple times to give it a, at least an okay. I'm never going to give DC a full 10 of anything. They're never going to get that from me.
Unless they maybe kill Lois, that'll be nice.
Yeah, something like that.
By the way, did you see my text? So I revisited that DC Heroes United app, and I hadn't been participating in the story because what they do is they upload the episodes to like Tubi and YouTube with the final decisions. And what they do is at the end of each one, they show you what could have happened if you pick this. So people were voted to have Clark reveal his identity to Lois. Lois breaks up with him. And as of yet,
Really?
haven't got back together yet. He tries to, but she says, "I think it's better for us if we stay apart." And I'm like, "Yes, it is." And then Clark and Diana have a moment, Britt. So he's leaving to do something, and Diana and Clark essentially. So Diana goes or like, "Hey, I'm sorry I punched you earlier," and then Clark just looks at her, and the camera angle is them like across the room, just looking at each other, and I'm like, okay, I don't want to get my hopes up, but this seems deliberate because this is not any like decision areas for this, and I'm like,
This is funny. Okay, so I will definitely have to watch this for myself.
because yeah, I'm like, wait a minute here. So they break up Lois, and then Diana and Clark have a moment.
That is that is interesting if that's, the way they're
If they
going.
do it, I will be very impressed. Like, I won't like the animation will still be crappy or anything like that. I'm not going to like say all of a sudden it's like
The
God
best thing ever.
tier, but it will give it an extra. I'll give it 5 points. I'll give it extra 5 points.
Exactly. And that's the thing with us is that even though it's kind of like how, we are extremely critical in the sense of Clark and Diana's relationship and how it's handled, whether they're friends or more, is because DC has the tendency to ruin it. So we are very skeptical of, certain things, and that's how I was with Tomorrowverse, even Tom King, and that again, I will forever say that is a honestly, when I say that that is a pinky toenail in a water bottle cap of water, it's
Here's the
not even
thing,
that.
Brit. Here's the thing, Brit. In retrospect, it could have been a lot worse.
It could have. And that's the thing, is that we have to think of that. And that's kind of, it's tiresome to think of that. And it's kind of like, why can't DC just respect the relationship and just let it be what it is? Again, whether they're friends or more, just let it be, because that is their dynamic that's been set up for decades. So
It's
when you
because
have,
they don't want Lois to be threatened.
oh, well, I mean, if she was a better character, she wouldn't be threatened. It is what it is. So, yeah, so with Tom King's issue 7, like you said, it could have been worse, but it just is basically a non thing to me. Um, it had some little minor moments, but it just wasn't that deep dive that he said it would be.
Well, Tom,
And
here's the thing. Doing a deep dive will require him to have actually read Wonder Woman.
right, that too.
That's what it will require. This is I know I keep saying this, but this is what really pisses me off. He said he read all this Wonder Woman beforehand, but character dynamics are all wrong that are obvious. Diana does not act like Diana. Hippolyta does not act like Diana. None of these characters are acting like themselves, and none of the events that he references are correct. So I'm like, what the hell? Or Diana's a toxic parent.
I
Now,
feel
the other theory that Robert and I had. So you remember in 1984 when Diana wraps the lasso around Steve and gives him a vision of Asteria?
yeah.
So one of the things that I said is that, so what if the way that they have someone say, don't trust whatever the Sovereign says, is Donna and or Diana show up and tell Trinity, no, here's what actually happened, and she wraps the lasso around Trinity's wrist. You don't have to show a flashback of like all the events that as they actually undone. No, you don't have to retread territory. Just have Trinity open her eyes and then turn to Sovereign and go, "You're a liar." That's all you got to do. It's very low effort. However, we all know that it takes high effort for DC to do anything low effort.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, on to Sacrifice. Now, here's the issue. My problem with this story starts after this part, because up until this part, I have no issues with the story. Then you see Superman's reaction. He's shocked. Okay, I'll go with that. That's fine. You would be shocked. Then she goes to Batman and she goes, please tell me this isn't gonna, I'm not gonna lose another friend because of this. And then Batman just says, get out. Or it's like even in Infinite Crisis when she shows up on the Watchtower and Batman says, you don't belong here. And I'm like, what?
Yeah, the whole thing, well, with this Infinite Crisis, it was to break up Trinity. But you have to, again, in order to break them up as a friendship, or Clark and Diana, even more so with the, they have the strongest bond, as, you know, that their feelings are deeper. And you basically have to throw every character on the bus and make them very uncharacteristically antagonistic towards each other, and even unrecognizable. Um, with Batman, I would say Bruce, he was overboard of how he acts, but honestly, he acted the way he acted because I feel like his ego and his pride was hurt just as much as he was hurt physically.
Mm-hmm.
So that is one thing that could have been explored, um, because it is honestly every time the Justice League or within the Justice League has a problem, it always ends up Batman that did something stupid.
Isn't that hilarious? And you wonder why it's like it's so it's like actually it's kind of funny when you know when you really go through it. Batman's a terrible superhero. Like if your superhero needs prep time to beat people, maybe he's a crappy superhero.
Well,
And I just pissed off the entire DC fan base by saying Batman's a crappy superhero. I don't care. Or it's like, this right here shows me. Because if you vacillate from his like moral code, he acts like his moral code is the be all end all and that it applies to every literal situation. And I'm like, hey, Bruce, you literally have contingency plans for this scenario. What was that about you turning Clark's skin clear? So, and because that's what actually happened in Tower of Babel. So he would be bombarded with solar radiation. Pretty sure that would kill him.
right. And even that story, it's so funny when Mark Waid, he says like any type of controversy or bad reviews or whatever, bad talk about any of the stories that he's written or something like that, he always kind of backtracks and say, well, and yeah, that's true that some ideas are taken the wrong way, that um, are taken literal and applied to other stories and, um, ruin the characters and everything. And that's why a lot of fans think, oh, Batman can beat the entire Justice League with prep time and everything like that. But at the same time, I mean, if you know that these some readers will take this literal, and especially the fans of said character, and will use it to a point where other writers will start using it and, just create this domino effect of issues, then in that same story, please address this a little bit more clearer to say, no, this, at the end of the day, this should not happen, that this is wrong, that this is just something that is explored to show you the bad that could happen. But at the end, do not do this. If you have to spell it out like that, like you're talking to 5-year-olds, at this point, yeah, it's time to do that. Because to see this sacrifice story, and especially that page of Diana snapping Laura's neck, to see that constantly on Twitter circulating and it's
Out of
taken out of
context. Yes,
context.
exactly. That's my problem with a lot of Twitter accounts on thing is like when people actually say like when these accounts that are supposed to understand that supposedly are the experts on DC, they're just posting random panels out of context to support their argument.
Yeah, which again, I mean, we see that even with New 52 of how that one line or one panel of Diana saying she take care of her villains, as in implying that she kills them, but then we see within her own book, within the Superman and Wonder Woman book, or any other book outside of the Justice League, all of her villains are alive and well. It's kind of like, okay, why even give that attention if you know that that's not true? Stop giving things that obviously that particular writer doesn't understand the character, they don't like the character, which we've seen multiple times of a lot of writers having problems with Diana like that, or it's just a bad story like Heroes in Crisis. Ignore it. Don't give it attention, because at that time, or you know at some point, DC will actually feed into that. And that's what we are now with Wonder Woman, with the Maxwell Lord thing, where now she has a movie that, no, we did not discuss, well, we discuss it, but is not something that we want to discuss or even acknowledge. But he was her main villain, so to speak. Um,
Mm-hmm.
But
Except it wasn't even Maxwell Lord.
no, he wasn't even. That's true. He wasn't even Maxwell Lord. I don't know what character he was. He was.
Here's what it was, and it was basically Patty Jenkins' intention. She was making a Trump joke.
Well, yeah, it was that, but I mean that
Even
was
on
obvious.
that, it's like in no because here's the thing. When during the trailers for 1984, when they show like her in the golden armor, because Wonder Woman only breaks out that golden armor if it's like end
A
of the
big
world,
battle.
like bad stuff is about to happen. Lord is the villain for you to do that, so that works. It's just that version of Maxwell Lord you use. That has literally never been a Maxwell Lord version ever.
I mean, again, and obviously we've built a universe to rewrite certain things. So yeah, she does have that armor on for our version of this Maxwell Lord battle. But yeah, it you have to make it make sense because with us and knowing, I think we can say that we know these characters, and as like
DC, put us in. We'll give you a good Wonder Woman run.
right, and we are storytellers, so we know what we're talking about. Um, so yeah, we are gonna have questions, and we are gonna poke a lot of holes like Swiss cheese in these stories. And if your story comes out as like, a block of Swiss cheese, well, that's your fault because you're trying to make these stories work and they are very contrived, and
Oh,
and
that's great, Brit. A
what
bottle of Swiss cheese. I love the way you phrase things.
well, thank you. Um, yeah, so it's all in all, it's just basically this story has really it could have been a very emotional story in a way to bring the Trinity and bring Clark and Diana together more so because Diana will make the ultimate sacrifice. She will do all that she can to help her friends and when it's especially difficult when you have fans say that she's not human, that she's just a demigoddess, that she doesn't have humanity. But Diana is the one who, like, first again, her clay origin. Her or she is Mother Earth in a sense, being created by Earth's soil, um, on Themyscira. So she has that connection to Earth more than anyone else. And she grew up in the Amazons are multicultural and they bring in different things even though Diana wasn't of the outside world to interact with other people or really just men. That doesn't mean that takes away her humanity or even the Amazons. There are a lot of islanders that we know in reality that just because they're on an island, that doesn't mean they're not human. That doesn't mean that they're not, you know, uh, have a culture of their own. And again, with the Amazons being multicultural, they have learned, about the outside world and different cultures within the outside world. They do study different things and stuff like that. And that's why Diana wanted to go out to actually experience it. And her whole purpose is to bring those cultures together. So once you ignore that and make it seem like she's just a bloodthirsty warrior who just wants to fight monsters or even swing her sword as uh at mortals, that's a total different character. That's not even Xena. That's not even Red Sonja. I don't know who
It's
that is, but
called
it's
Injustice Wonder Woman.
well, yeah, it's basically her. But main verse Diana, New 52 Diana, post crisis Diana
Our Diana.
was our Diana. She was not that. But when you are a fan of her, a proclaimed fan of her, and you make her seem like that, trying to throw a certain status quo under the bus, you're just doing a disservice to her. So again, with this story, um, with trying to again make some drama where it shouldn't have been, or like I said, trying to split apart the Trinity. No, this was not the story to tell because
Exactly.
long term effects, you have to think of the long term effects of these characters, and who was affected more was the woman
Well,
because
yeah, there you
of
go.
misogynistic and sexist fans. And again, Superman's reaction, again, why was he not questioned that Superman, if Diana didn't kill Max Lord, you would have killed billions of people. And we also have to look at the when people say you have to do the non-lethal options, okay, what are you supposed to do? Because Lord has like telekinesis or not telekinesis, but his mind control
Telepathy.
telepathy, yeah. Um, how
Yeah,
are
he,
you
he he said you can snap me out of it. You can knock me out. As soon as I wake up, I'm gonna mind control Superman.
exactly? So he was he was tied in the lasso. He told Diana the truth of what he was going to do. He didn't mind it at all, telling her everything and saying the only way you can snap him out and you can like end it all is to kill me. So if he just basically gave that confession and Clark is right there listening and knowing what, and everything like that, how is that not addressed within this story? I don't get
Yeah, how
that.
does Clark not? Because Clark was out of his mind control at this point, and I'm like, wait, she didn't just willy nilly say, "Hey, Max." She
I,
it I now what they tried to retcon it later to screw Diana, where they said that like if someone believes something well enough, they can break the lasso of truth.
yeah, that's BS. That's no. That is and also the different depictions of Diana as well to make it seem like she wasn't remorseful at all. You know, that is the one thing. Diana does not want to take a life. She doesn't. She would never do so. It will hurt her. It's just the fact that if it's someone that she cares about that's in danger, you know, and there's no other option, it's not that she still won't be remorseful, but she will make that decision right then and there without hesitation.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. She will.
and also, again, what we're talking about in our story is to say that she killed a man, she killed a human mortal, whatever, and that's something that we said in chapter 1 of our story of Shelterverse, is that it's okay for her to have beheaded Medusa broadcasted,
Mm-hmm.
because you see physically in appearance, Medusa is a monster, quote unquote.
Mm-hmm.
So mortals cheer for that. But if
That's
it's
true. Wait a minute. She literally killed Medusa.
right, but a man that is just as much as a monster, but his monster image is on the inside, but she is now the villain or the monster seen as that because she killed a mortal man just because he looks like a mortal man, but he's not. That is something also that needed to be explored of how can you have that, how can you compare that? How can you uh, like make that sort of decision that who's a monster and who's not, who's able to be killed just because or not be killed just because their appearance is of a mortal person, you know but you still have the heart of a monster in a sense, or a non-heart in the
Non-heart. Yeah,
sense of
exactly.
Maxwell Lord. So yeah, those types of questions, those types of plots were not put in this story that could have been, again, to make it more in depth. And then you would have better conversations about the story.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I think that it's one of those things where like if Medu it's very hard to wrap my mind because now that I realize it, it makes the reaction to this worse. Because I'm like, hey Clark, you realize she beheaded Medusa, right? And you didn't say anything. Oh, Bruce, is that just because you're a hypocrite? Oh, it's because he looks human. He's a meta-human, bro. But anyway, I did like with this, at least there were some consequences. Like Diana started to lose the whole public like perception, if you will. It's just the problem. It's like then you get to because this led to the events of Amazon's attack, and when you realize the second and third order of effects of this, you start to realize what?
Yeah, that's the thing is that a lot of people also say that Kingdom Come is the reason why Diana is seen as the warrior woman, you know, happy-go-lucky, sword swinging. But again, actually read and comprehend the story. Diana does not want to do that. However, with the turmoil that she was going through with her own, being stripped of her royalty, and looked upon as a failure in her mother and sister's eyes and stuff, she had to make a decision that, she fell off the rails a little bit. But at the end, again, and it says it point blank that she was the student at first, but she became the teacher, meaning she is teaching the newer generation of heroes a better way. She, went through her failures, but she took lessons out of it. With this story, again, this story really emphasizes how they didn't take the right lessons from it and they didn't show these characters growing from it. They just made it worse with Amazon attack or any other reference to it. You have it as like this significant, the only, in a sense, significant event of Wonder Woman in her history.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like eventually it just gets to the point where I'm like, okay, what am I doing? And then so we get to the ethics and the moral dilemma of this, and it's like, by the way, yeah, Superman has killed people before. By the way, like when he killed General Zod and the
Right.
Kryptonians, and I'm like, when people are freaking out in the Snyderverse about Superman killing Zod, I'm like, no, he literally did that.
Yeah. But no, they don't want to read the source material. They don't want to read the books at all
Oh,
because
wait a minute. This makes sacrifice look even worse because look at what Superman says. When I killed General Zod and the others, an entire world was at stake, millions of lives. Good Lord was going to use Superman under mind controller to destroy the world.
exactly.
I'm like, when you read that, I'm like, hey, a-hole, where was this?
Exactly. This is why I pretty much wanted to not only does it lead up to our next episode, but um it also I stumbled across this panel and I'm kind of like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I'm like, just hold on for 2 seconds here because this doesn't make sense.
So he is expressing how he felt remorse. He is expressing how it hurt him, but he did it for the greater good. Okay, so he couldn't see that his best friend made that, you know, snap judgment, pun intended, um,
Oh,
to
jeez. Snap
to
judgment. That's so good.
um to
Never
save
change, Brit. Never
billions.
change.
I won't. To save billions. He couldn't like understand that. Yeah, again, the whole thing is very contrived. And the more we talk about it, the more it's kind of like, yeah, this is it, a lot of post-crisis stories and events, with um fans thinking that post-crisis is just the end all be all and the best era ever. When we actually analyze m- pretty much majority of the stories, no, it's kind of bad, you know. They
Yeah,
have their gems,
it's
but
nostalgia. That's what it is. Well, it's
yeah,
bad if you're not Batman and Green Lantern.
right. But Superman and Wonder Woman, they you can see why they are the ones who had the massive overhaul.
Well, particularly Superman, because if you look at this, and by the way, the documentary on Jim Lee's life goes into their whole process of forming the new 50, because originally it was just going to be Superman. So they were like, okay, so let's get rid of the marriage with Lois. Let's give him more of an alien costume because he's Kryptonian. Oh, wait a minute. How about we just do this with everyone?
Yeah, and I mean because they really needed it. You
Mm-hmm.
know, Batman and Green Lantern, when you look at um the DC documentary and
Which I
also
love, by the way. I watch that practically every month because of how self-referential it is.
I mean, it's funny how DC fans have not referenced that because it's
Because it's
teasing
the only
them.
time they ever reference it is like, why didn't they bring up Rebirth? And I'm like, because Rebirth sucked.
Yeah, but the fact that they let it be known of the pressures and everything that all across the board, sales were in the toilet and how just the characters were not resonating with new fans or even older fans. Yeah, that is why these characters needed an overhaul. Batman had the look of the Nolan films. Green Lantern, even with Ryan Reynolds' movie, Green Lantern still was a popular franchise. Superman did not have a film, and basically has his popularity torpedoed, and it just felt like he was stagnant. Wonder Woman, of course, we've heard the horrors of the behind the scenes with coming up with movies for her, television shows, and everything like that. So she definitely needed a boost of
Mhm.
some sort. And every other character, I mean, DC, now, even though they're trying to be a little bit more diverse in the sense of creating minis for other characters, it's still very much Batman oriented characters. And
Yeah, which
yeah,
it could be because they don't get a lot of pitches. And I swear, see, here's the thing. I recently did a tweet. And I wanted to say this. All right, I pitched that. Okay, because I get asked all the time, Jared, what character would you want to write for DC if they gave you the opportunity? Wouldn't even hesitate. Wonder Woman. Give me anything Wonder Woman. Give me a mini series. Give me a Black Label. Give me anything. I will write Wonder Woman. And I'm pretty confident that at least I could make Wonder Woman a little bit more of the A-lister she should be. Because here's the thing. When you have someone that actually cares about the character, not Tom King. When you have someone that actually reads Wonder Woman comics, not Tom King. When you have someone that can back up their comics knowledge, not Tom King. Guess what that leads to? Sales, which I know sales is something that's very foreign to Tom King. It's about as foreign to Tom King as the idea of Lex Luthor of not being a narcissist. Actually, what's kind of a funny thing? If anything, Tom King is the Lex Luthor of DC Comics.
oh my God.
I just realized that. Wow, he has Lex Luthor's ego. Why can't he write Lex
Yes,
Luthor? Then it being a self-insertion makes sense.
no, I- honestly, I called Tom King Lex Luthor the other day, remember, in Trinity chat.
Yeah.
So yeah, it definitely makes sense. Um, I mean, it okay, now that definitely puts a lot of things in perspective because Tom King acted like he pretty much hated Superman, but he has like
I
a
wonder what. Yeah, exactly. You're really revealing a lot about yourself, Tommy.
but he acted, but now he says that it's his, his favorite character, and but then you basically ruin Batman and Wonder Woman. Yeah, it's a connection there.
It's very a connection. But anyway, but it's like because of this, because here's the thing. Here's why Wonder Woman doesn't like it isn't as big of a character as it could. It's really simple. DC doesn't put in the work. If they put in the work, then I know for a fact that they put in the work, Wonder Woman could easily be one of the, if not the most top-selling DC characters because the character is freaking awesome. I will 110% die on the hill. And you know what? That's why I bring up Absolute Wonder Woman. Because here's what that's showing. The fact that that's always in the one of the top selling comics. One of them. It's always one of them. And Brit, how great did it feel knowing that in terms of like the top 5 top selling comics, one of them was Absolute Wonder Woman.
I mean, yeah.
Ignore the fact that you have some issues with the book. Ignore that. But it's like when it gets to that, when a Wonder Woman book is one of them, eventually you could say, I don't think that's going to affect like DC's decision making. I'm sorry. As soon as like if Absolute Wonder Woman keeps like this, which all indicators are that it will, guess what? You can't tell me that DC is not going to at least look at that and say, maybe we should put more effort into Wonder Woman because I get that. I'm not saying they should make the main Wonder Woman book Absolute Wonder Woman because that's not what it's supposed to do. What it's going to show is that it's not because what DC thinks that they could put low effort into it because the character of Diana is not interesting. No, it's not the character. It's the way you're handling her.
Right. And yeah, I do have issues with it. However, Diana still remains who she's supposed to be. I it's a complex type of criticism that I have with it. But at the same time, again, the main point though is that Diana is who she's supposed to be. And
yeah, she acts consistently with the way Diana would act. And I'm sorry, in a world where Tom King's Wonder Woman exists,
far better.
That's why I'm so protective of that book because it's one of the first times that Diana in a Wonder Woman book in a year has felt like Diana.
Right, and she's not selfish, absolute Diana. Even within her circumstances, and I do have issues with Cersei because I feel like she's too soft. However, with having that mother figure that taught Diana to and well, I would say that Diana changed Cersei's perspective and how Diana made the little animals of hell, how she, was basically like Snow White from hell. She she still is that light, regardless of her
Yeah, you
of the
could say
setting.
she made Cersei too soft, but that could just be Diana because in that book, in the first issue, it shows that like she softened Diana. I mean, she
She
softened Cersei.
softened Cersei. Right. But with the main book of Tom King, Diana's very selfish. She's not, her fight was not for her sisters anymore. Her fight became only for vengeance or whatever for Steve. If Steve
Or
didn't
for no.
die,
Wait, Brit. Not even for herself. Not even for her sisters.
right, she's very selfish and only caring for Steve. Like, how can you? Tom King made it seem like his book was about Wonder Woman versus the government, the Amazons versus America, and her being an outlaw, a fugitive, and how. But we see in the Justice League book, she's all fine. Even in
How is she on the Justice League if she? I was having this conversation because this is an issue of editorial. If she's on the Justice League, but she's a fugitive still.
even in the absolute power, um, with saying that Sergeant Still, she said, I'll take care of you later." But how is he free? But the last time we saw him, he was being tortured by the Wonder Girls.
And why
You
are
know
the Wonder Girls torturing someone is what I want to know.
that, and
And
also,
why is Yara cursing up a storm? See, this is what shows me. I think so. Remember how Tom King didn't want to have the Wonder Girls? I think these were originally supposed to be different Amazons.
oh yeah, because the fact that Tom King said he wasn't going to feature the Wonder Girls in the book, he said that he had a list of things that he doesn't want in the book, which the gods being referenced, which I can understand that a little bit, but at the same time, it doesn't really make sense. The Wonder Girls, probably the fact that we haven't heard anything from Etta Candy, yeah, she probably
Watch.
wasn't
He'll
supposed to be in the
kill
book,
Etta.
right? And for him to say that everything has been like a red herring, or
I think
um,
that's BS. Honestly, I really
it
think that's
is,
just it's because watch if Emily's mother is. I mean, if Trinity's mother is actually Emily, I'm gonna be pissed because why would the Sovereign bring up that an Amazon was pregnant if it's not you?
right,
I don't understand this. But anyway, real quick. All right. So I found so Brit sent me a list of all the times Superman is killed. There was too many to put on here because always the PowerPoint would be like really extensive. So I picked 4 of my favorites. So kills Doomsday, obviously, pretty famously. Then he punches his fist through Cyborg Superman and vibrates it that it vaporizes him. By the way, before you guys say, oh, but they came back to life, I'm not talking about that. Superman killed them there. He killed a Kryptonian dragon and killed Maxwell. I know it was an alternate reality, still counts. Because you can't, because that's the other thing. When you challenge these people, Brit, and they say, well, that was the Elseworlds. That was the main continuity. I'm like, first off, yeah, it was. Second off, it's all canon according to DC, so shut up. But it's like, we weren't talking about whether or not it's like main continuity or anything like that. You said never.
right.
And then they blocked me. Which I'm like, oh, okay, fine. If you can't take a challenge, then. But yeah, those are the occasions. But Superman is in Superman's most famous story. He kills something.
Yeah. And what's so funny is how some Twitter fans, especially, they will try to argue you down. If they have a big following or something like that, they will have their followers, dogpile on you. They will make assumptions that you don't read, that you aren't a comic book fan, that they will see what you are a fan of and talk about, how
Like
apparently,
Snyder.
yeah,
My favorite is someone try. So I was criticizing Lois, and then someone said, "You're a Snyder fan," and I go, "You realize that Lois played a very important role in the Snyderverse, right?"
right.
I
It's
don't
just
think you thought this through, brother.
no, it's just those type of gotcha type things. Yeah, it doesn't work. They can try to downplay you as a fan because of a certain thing, but no, it that doesn't work anymore, and it never will unless you are um pushing your own headcanon. But when you're someone, first of all, your background, you have a gigantic bookshelf and more um behind you. And it's not like it's just for decorations, you know.
Boxes. I have a box of bullshit. I have so much stuff. Yes, I'm still emphasizing that because that's hilarious.
Yes, it is. Um and the fact that you have a YouTube channel with, multiple shows that's giving references to comics and not taking anything out of context. You're
Mhm.
literally giving issue numbers, pages, and images and everything in full context of what it's supposed to be. So for anyone to come to you and say that you don't read or that you are this fan, so it means something or another of not reading or not being a true fan or whatever, yeah, that is BS because, you know, you can like a certain thing, and we said this even from the first episode. You can like a certain thing that certain thing could have been your first exposure to DC, and then within that first exposure, you expand it to more and learning of the characters and stuff like that. So for anyone who says that just because you're a fan of one thing, you can't know the characters, yeah, it's totally
Or,
BS.
or like I don't get to critique James Gunn's universe. That's
Yeah,
hilarious.
or just anything like that. But like you said, to say that Superman has never killed, yeah, you have not read because whether it is an article or it's actually within the books, you know, Superman has done so. Even if it is an alternate universe, he has done so. And with the previous panel that I showed, or that you showed,
Yeah,
he
exactly.
he felt remorse for killing Zod, but he still did so. And again,
He said,
if
"I've
he's
made my peace with that." It was a bit much, but I understood it.
okay, so why couldn't that be something that he gave Diana?
Exactly. That's why this doesn't make sense. Or like any of these other times when, okay, she says you murdered him. What? Clark, murder is unjustified. She was mind controlling literally the most powerful being on earth.
Yeah,
What are
that's
you talking about murder?
yeah. If he was going to use him again, that it still goes back to, does he not kind of like, or is he not trying to understand that he was going to kill billions of people had she not intervened? Or was she supposed to just sit back and be like, hey, you just killed a whole bunch of people, so I didn't want to tarnish myself
Oh
for killing
no.
someone.
Do you know who wrote this?
Yes, I
Greg
did.
Rucka, Gail Simone, and illustrations by John Byrne. That should tell you all you
That's
gotta know.
that's a trifecta of anti-SuperWonder.
Or just anti-Wonder, which is sad because two of these people wrote Wonder Woman.
Yeah, yeah,
It's that's how you know it's like contrived because those three are contrived the yin yang. Although I will say again, I would rather have Rucka on Wonder Woman than King. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But it's like, yeah, all these times they're addressing it, but the minute, yeah, when he says you murdered him, I'm like, were you not paying attention? No, the answer is no, but still, I'm like, what? And it's sad because it's like this is taking place in the same story. Anyway, how the story could have been handled better. Oh, trust me, next week, Brit and I will be telling you how this could have been handled a lot better.
right,
Live,
right.
by the way, we'll be doing that live. But see, the way it first could have been handled, you could still have Clark be shocked because that is a shock. That is 100%. He would be shocked at seeing Diana. You can even have Diana like a little shaken that she took a life, and then Clark. The way I would have it, and get ready for those crying cat emojis, Britt.
Oh,
He
geez.
puts his hands on her shoulders and says, "It's okay." He just says it's okay. That's Superman because he's gonna go look. While it's a shock, don't worry. It's not a shock at what you did. It's a shock at what you did, but I understand why you did it, and I may not necessarily agree, but I'm trying to clandestinely make it so it won't piss off people. That's why I'm saying that won't necessarily agree, but I understand why you did it because Diana, I trust you of all people. Of all people, I know if you take a life, you have a damn good reason to do that.
Exactly.
Yes, that's the interesting part about this. It's like you don't trust Diana, who's supposed to be your best friend. Oh,
Right.
and notice he runs to Lois after this.
Of course.
And I'm like, you wonder why I loathe that woman and would prefer to her to be 6 feet in the ground. I'm talking about YouTube. I'm talking about a fictional character. So I want to be clear on that. So it's like you can actually have it where like, yeah, we're not. The thing about it is like, don't have like everyone turn against Diana. You can have the public because they don't know her as well as these guys do. Don't have the Justice League turn on her. I think that should be number one.
Right, because again, I mean, wasn't like Plastic Man kind of like a perv? You know, they all have
Mm.
they
I think this is after also Identity Crisis, where elongated man's wife was R-worded by Dr. Light.
yeah, so a lot of um these villains or these heroes, anti-heroes have done some things, very questionable things, and you know, they don't have room to judge. So to write, I can see there's like you said, there will be shock, you know, that Wonder Woman, that the one that is supposed to be. I don't like it when they make Diana like this den mother for grown men of the Justice League because it's like a bunch of man babies. But for her, with the public perception though, as like this mother figure in a sense, and again being like this inspiration in this for young girls. I can see why that would be a shock. But again, we go back to they didn't question this when she beheaded Medusa and it was broadcasted and she blinded herself, you know. But again, you have like all of these different questions and looking at her differently, making it seem like she is worse than um, the Joker or something because she um, had to kill Lord. Um, but with this story, how it should have been the at least the initial thing of Clark, if he is going to feel sadness, it would have been I had to my best friend had to make this decision,
Mm-hmm.
to do this. And he would have, yeah, he would have wanted help in a sense of like, I don't know, go to Zatanna and have her like, can you create some type of force field, mind force field or something
Or how
that
about this,
this won't happen
Jean?
again? John could have helped, something like that. But instead, you make it seem like Diana just did not save you. I don't, I really, there's a disconnect here. And for any one of these writers that supposedly love the characters, you don't have to necessarily care for the dynamic, but at least respect the history of it. And for Clark to all of a sudden not understand Diana, it just really it really shows the biasness and how some of the writers are so willing again to throw the characters under the bus. And Rucka did the same thing in Rebirth, because he couldn't stand Clark and Diana actually having a romantic relationship. He made it seem like Diana didn't know, um, for her to say that she didn't know what romance and love was, what it truly was, that being with Clark was easy, or that he had Steve put her in a mental asylum and a mental institute, and then that is supposed to be some type of love, or that
Yeah.
the fact that Diana lost everything, so she goes to Steve as a rebound. If that is supposedly love, no, I don't think so. Not in Diana's sense. She doesn't do that. So um what makes that love and not her genuinely having a relationship with Clark and a friendship as well?
Well,
Because
not only that, I'm not as experienced in relationships, but I'm fairly certain being someone's rebound is not a good thing.
right. And I believe Rucka, it was also said that after this story, he wanted to basically Clark and Diana's relationship as friends is ruined, but he wanted to slowly like have Diana and Bruce reconcile as friends.
Oh God, I wonder why.
Right. So it's all about the biasness of the writer and these certain status quos or these certain preferences that they have. And again, you're throwing these characters under the bus and you ruining dynamics and everything for a contrived story that has this long-term effect. And now because of this story and because of what you wanted, that obviously didn't happen, but now we have present day Wonder Woman being labeled as a killer and this particular story being taken out of context because you wanted a certain dynamic to be forced.
Hmm.
That's something that you just shouldn't do as a writer. If you can't naturally have something happen, don't do it.
Yeah,
You know,
exactly, exactly. Just tell them, I give me extra time. I can do this, but don't do it because it's going to screw up the relationship. Anyway, some other ways that they could have done this. Yeah, exactly. You could have this explore more of the relationship with Diana and Clark. We can also have it where, like, again, Clark goes, look, you have your reasons. Here's the thing: they actually have to talk.
right,
Separating and just going, I don't know you anymore. I'm gonna go fly away and be with Lois. That doesn't help.
right. And Clark and Diana, they always talk. I mean, there's times where we see Clark saying that only Diana understands him. You know, we have where, yes, it was editorial fighting against it, and but Wonder Woman 175 or Our Worlds at War, or even Immortal Beloved, the fact that he said that Diana is different with her because she understands him and he can talk to her. Um, we have New 52. We have I forgot the issue, but it was one where well Bruce is dead and Diana just she gives him that Clark that moment to reflect and then she says, um he says he just wants to sit and basically watch the sunset. And she says, okay, so they just sit there, together. But if that's that deep connection that they have where they can just be each other's peace. And but they have this unspoken connection or understanding of things that they do, you know, yeah, they'll talk about it, but at the same time, they still know that, like you said, my best friend, she wouldn't just go snapping necks. She
Exactly.
has a reason to do so. Um, I'm not giving Tomasi this because he still ruined the relationship, but even within volume 3, when Diana was saying how she trusts him, and with him emphasizing the God of War, that still kind of tarnishes um, that scene as well. So I can't really give it too much. But the fact that Diana said that, Clark is more of the savior and the protector, while Diana is the fighter, and they have their different roles that they do to make their partnership and teamwork work. And it's like, yeah, that is what should be emphasized on, is that Clark is that protector. He is the um, savior, but Diana is the fighter because she is willing to do things that's a little bit more tougher because of her upbringing. Um, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's a bad thing. If anything, that is a little bit of a role reversal that kind of give more leverage of Clark and Diana's relationship, of how, you know, it's not gearing into expectations, gender expectations.
Yeah, exactly. So before we move on, I will say, yeah, and that is very interesting. But all of this required DC to actually care about Wonder Woman, which they don't. And here's the thing: this emphasized how little DC cares about Wonder Woman. Brit told me the story about. I'm telling the Frank Cho story, Brit. So, for Frank Cho, so someone wanted to commission Frank Cho, I think, to draw Wonder Woman, if I remember correctly, or anything like that.
Right.
But so they couldn't figure out what to ask him to draw. So Frank Cho suggested that he draw Diana and Donna Troy making out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what's kind of funny? She posted this in the group chat we have with Jid, and even Jid's like, Greg Rucka was right. I'm like, wow.
I mean, Frank Cho, his commissioned art and those blank covers, that he's done that for Marvel female characters too, and now he's done a lot of controversial blank covers with Wonder Woman.
I mean, here's the thing: the back of my hoodie is Frank Cho.
Yeah, that is good art. Where you want to promote it, but the artist itself, that is how it's difficult to kind of separate the art from the artist, because they kind of taint the image of the character in a sense, because it goes too far at times.
The way I see it, the way I always approach that, unless the writer does like something, the creator does something like genuinely illegal, yeah, he could do stuff because that covers out in bad taste, 100%. But as long as he's not like, he doesn't have CP or he's not murdering someone, I'm like, okay, fine. Is the dude a D-bag? Yeah. Am I gonna buy a lot of his art? No. I found out about this after I found the hoodie, and I still like the hoodie. That's the thing.
Right. It's kind of like it taints it a little bit. It taints the image and the
I
art.
immediately unfollowed him from social media, though.
Yeah, after it was a couple of his blank covers where Diana is kind of like
in bed, and then she goes, Man of Steel, my ass. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, and she does, and it's multiple like different characters too, and basically emasculating them, and it goes too far. It's like one time thing, haha, whatever. But
the Power Girl boobs ones where it's like he has Karen holding her boob and she goes, oh, I need deodorant. Under boob sweat is no joke. And there's like everyone like peeking around. Clark is looking at looking, and then Supergirl's looking down and going, I don't have that problem.
Yeah, things like that. You just, again, we see these characters in different ways of maturity, but at the same time, they still have an image for kids. So,
oh my God, he even has one of Swamp Thing's girlfriend, Abby Arcane. She has a razor in her hand and she's looking down and she goes, yeah, it's a jungle down there. Time to trim the hedge.
Jared, oh my God.
I'm like, yeah, I'm unfollowing. That's it. I'm done. Whoa.
Yeah, that's...
What the hell is this? I wonder why does DC still give this guy work?
I mean, that is why.
I mean, they give Tom King work, so that is that's right there as an explanation. They still gave John Byrne work.
Yeah, and Jurgens.
But even because John Byrne had Superman making out with a 14-year-old kid and Batman marrying his descendant.
Yeah, and that was like the worst Elseworlds where...
Oh, no, what if the commission was just a lie and the Wonder Woman Donna Troy thing was for a story written by John Byrne?
Oh my goodness.
I'm trying to make this make sense. Why would he come up with that? I got it. I'll do a cover. I'll do a story I was going to do for John Byrne. As the dialogue on it was so... I'm like, for one thing, he always has Diana saying stuff that she would never say, but I'm like, what the? The dialogue is like it's in.
Yes, it's awful.
I'm like, someone call Axel Braun at this point.
Yeah, the characters are, like I said, he tries to be funny, but it's not. It's not. It's a joke too far.
Hey,
And
if there's one creative, I'm sure would really enjoy working with James Gunn.
touche.
Yeah, I'm telling you, they are made for each other. Anyway, continuing on. So, growth is people. Yeah, use this as a growth opportunity because actually, you know what's kind of funny, Brit? When you sent me the information for the PowerPoint, the show notes, and I saw the images from League of One, I'm like, oh, wait a second. Oh yeah, this literal thing happens where Diana has to kill a dragon. Still counts. She's still killing, and Superman is like, "I trust you."
Right. And this is what I'm saying, that we have in story evidence that how sacrifice is such a contrived story that does not make sense to every other reference to Clark and Diana killing. It just total opposite of that story. Um, and how they do talk. That is the foundation of their relationship is trust, understanding, and communication. Whether again, they are mostly best friends. The romantic aspect is there as an attraction. It's a bonus when they can become, you know, romantically involved. But most importantly, they do have they have that friendship and being best friends. Um, Even the Christmas little story where he gives her the mini Thor hammer, and where it kind of looks like they're kissing, but they
Or it's
probably
like when
just
she's on
embracing.
top of him and their breaths are intermingling, and I'm like,
This is where they are. He's having a moral dilemma, and she's giving him a pep talk. Uh, yeah, we can call it a pep talk. Um, but yeah, this is what they do. And so, right here in League of One, Diana makes a lot of decisions that she wouldn't normally do, obviously, but she wanted to protect the Justice League, who she feels is her family. That is who Diana is. And Clark, even though it hurt him because she didn't come to him to tell him what her plan was, and maybe he would, try to find a different solution or, help her with uh, what she wanted to do, or, just anything like that. But at the end, he still knows who she is and trusts her enough where what she said about him, you know, taking it or leaving it, and she knows he will take whatever she says. And that's why it's the ending that it is. That
I
he loves.
swear, you said this when we covered League of One. The bottom image looks like they just got married, and there's Batman smiling.
And then the above image where she's saying, take it or leave it, and how he has her
Yeah,
places
yeah.
her hand over his heart.
Oh, trust me. This Diana can assure you Clark knows how to get his hands dirty.
Quiet.
If I get Michael Conrad on the show, which I want to do, I am going to ask him about that. I'm like, dude, I love what you do on this. That's not ambiguous, brother.
Like, what does this even mean?
Oh, we know what it means, Brit. Oh, we know what it means. But it's like the fact that Diana says, "Oh, I assure you," that's the part where I'm like, "Oh God."
Right.
But anyway, yeah, that's why Legal One is the best because not just because it looks like they got married at the end, but it's like it's essentially like no, the Justice League trust her, and in this, this is actually worse, and by worse, I don't mean like a bad story. I mean Diana did worse stuff. She actually fought and took down her friends, and they still trust her. They're still like, okay, you had your reasons. Because guess what? They understand that like if Diana does anything, she has a damn good reason to do it.
Exactly. And
Exactly. And that's the point. I'm like, this is how it should be. Why is it that Diana is written better in Elseworlds than main story?
because main story, you have a status quo that she threatens. So she's thrown under the bus, 95% of the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And plus, in this, you don't have to worry about Lois. Ah.
Right. In this story, I mean, if it's centered around Diana too, more than likely she's going to get the respect that she deserves. I wouldn't say, even with Dead Earth, um, to know that Diana is basically her own villain because she kills Clark and like she's the one who caused the world's destruction.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you try to make it seem sappy or whatever, with her being all about
And then
love.
she takes Clark's skull and turns it into a mace.
Yeah, it's kind of like the way you want to depict the character and then the actions you have her do, sometimes it just doesn't go right. You know, Again, with that story, you have her go overboard with her reaction to, yes, Diana will be devastated about the Amazons, um, about the island, being destroyed.
Yeah,
And again,
exactly.
we
Mm-hmm.
address this in the story. But she would not go overboard to where she's killing her best friend. That is just, and then causing, because she killed her best friend and the whole entire brutal fight that they would never actually have, um, cause the destruction of the entire world. You know, that's just something that Diana wouldn't do.
Yeah, exactly. It's it's a good story, but at least it's an Elseworld story, so it's like, okay, it's an Elseworld story. So that's why I
Right.
kind of divorce it. So I'm like, that's why. Here's the thing: if the Tom King story were an Elseworlds book, I would not have nearly as many issues with it as I do. Because yeah, it's an Elseworlds book. We can ignore it if we want to, and the overall, here's the problem with Tom King. In addition to many other things, he has good ideas, just really, 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 really crappy execution.
True.
Because yeah, the idea of like, first off, I'm not against Diana having a daughter. I'm just against Tom King writing said daughter.
Right, because
As we saw, because Diana's had great kids in the past. By the way, so then we see here there are two examples of them having the conflict, but actually the relationship is better. But here's that panel of Diana telling Lois, "We have a deal, but we never said it." We have Kingdom Come, and then we have Superman Wonder Woman, the last issue written by Charles Sewell, the God King, and it's like they fight, but it's also strife. I love how when she figures out strife, first off, she just slips out, "I love you," and then Clark goes, "Wait, what did you say?" And then she just rolls up on Olympus, destroys the pool, and it says, "See if you can screw with us if you can't see us."
right.
I love New 52 Diana. My favorite line she ever said was when she's fighting Hal Jordan, and then she goes, "This gives me no pleasure, but I'm sure you've heard that before." I'm like, good
she
lord.
she definitely was sassy. She was sassy
Yeah,
and
and that works for that Diana.
I mean, even post-crisis Diana under Perez, she was very lighthearted, but she was sassy too. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I enjoy when Diana has a little bit of, well, she always has a backbone, and not just playing like the doe-eyed, innocent girl. She does, you know, stand up for herself and kind of throw a little shade, That's something that she would do. And it's not to be mean, it's not to be some type of snooty princess or whatever. She is really just being brutally honest because she is she has the lasso of truth, but also she is the embodiment of truth. So her being, like I said, brutally honest is who she is supposed to be.
Hmm.
Um,
I just love but I'm sure you've heard that before. Oh my God, that's just so good. That's one of the few times that Jeff Johns has written Wonder Woman well. But
only, you know,
yeah, but it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, in the first couple arcs of New 52 Justice League, she's fine. It's when you get to the end where I'm like, it's not bad. Let me put it that way. At this point, I would rather have Jeff Johns come on and write Wonder Woman. I know he can't because of Ghost Machine, but still, I was like, because for the most part, she at least sounded like Diana as opposed to sounded like a depressed Tom Kingified version of Diana. I'm going to love this. Is the only good part about the Tom King Wonder Woman run. It's the amount of puns I can make because of it.
right.
But
And I
anyway,
mean,
so continuing on with this. So why is explain to the people in the back about Kingdom Come and Superman Wonder Woman and how this shows their better relationships with conflict. And you in the back, get off your phones because you're about to learn something.
all right. So with Kingdom Come, of course, we know that the basis of the story is how the public chooses the anti-heroes over, the old school heroes that don't want to kill and don't want to play the judge, juror, and executioners. Um, and how the world, like I said, they chose Magog over Superman because Magog killed the Joker. So Superman, he was basically like a wounded puppy in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And Diana, she never gave up. That's the thing that a lot of people kind of ignore is that she kept pushing to for Clark to, basically get off his ass and, be the hero that the world needed again. But he continued on um licking his own wounds, being isolated, and it frustrated Diana. And then the fact that she didn't have help to um, keep the world at bay. So the world went upside down, and she, like I said earlier, she was stripped of her royalties, and she, in the eyes of her mother and sisters, she was a failure. But she held that in, and it of course, we saw glimpses of that, of her frustration coming out, but at the same time, she just kept trying to fight. And it's some things that they had to, some decisions that they had to make that, yeah, both of them, they would clash and everything like that. But that is just what you do because they have different perspective on how do we figure this out? How do we get we have the same goal in mind, but different points of views of how to get to it. And again, that's not a bad thing. I don't like that a lot of DC writers or fans have this. You don't have to like Clark and Diana's romantic relationship, but as their friendship, they are going to have differences. But at the same time, they have similarities to bring all of that together and balance it out. So even
Exactly.
though Clark and Diana have different views of things, it still comes together to complement each other. Um, and that was also said in the previous panel of, yeah, we have different views and everything, but that makes things interesting, and it does. So obviously, at the end, you know, they finally, you know, um, or Clark basically, he has a different view of things and he's able to see the better a better way and how are they supposed to, you know, get back to how they were. And Diana, at the end, she is given a second chance in a sense from her mother and sisters, giving back her royalties, and you know, and she, like it said in the book, the student becomes the teacher. So obviously, we can pretty much, I guess, have the implication or whatever that she helps the anti-heroes or the younger generation. You know, and honestly, if DC were to have a proper sequel, instead of doing David's origin story, we should have seen Diana and older Clark like helping the younger generations. We saw glimpses of like Magog becoming um like a, I guess, the leader of the newer generation with their son John, but I think it would have been a little bit more impactful if we were to saw how Clark and Diana raised even John to be um a hero as well.
Exactly. And I do wish we got a little KC book that kind of dealt with that. That would be actually kind of cool.
Right.
But that would
Then
honestly be my pitch because you can do a lot of the stuff and like explain specifically for the people in the back how Wonder Woman acted in a certain way. You could have Diana talking to her kid about this. And maybe you could see Clark and Diana with different kids and watch our book do better than Tom King. Suck it. So,
um then you
yeah, go
have
ahead.
Superman and Wonder Woman. Again,
Hmm.
they have different views, but they have the same goal. They are two sides of the same coin. And we really see that of how Diana's upbringing, how she was, raised to be honest, raised to celebrate her culture and everything like that. While Clark, he was more reserved, more closed off, and, you know, it, and hides his who he is and things like that. So he had to learn how to open up. Diana had to learn how to be a little bit more private in a sense to just not have the world just have these expectations of her and just give her that sense of, peace. And while Clark, he's learning to be more open and not so reclusive in a sense. So that comes together with that. And again, it's all about communication. And with this story, with volume one, that's what it was about. It was more
Two.
of a um was that Stu?
It is volume
Volume
two
two?
because this is after he comes back after purging the
That's right.
Doomsday virus.
Okay. But it still goes into,
Hmm.
okay, I will actually just combine one and two.
It still works. It still works. So it's
Yeah,
not like it's really anything wrong.
right. And say that it was still more of a cultural dilemma that they were having, and
Hmm.
though and basically exploring that what the different cultures bring with that view, and how again they are able to communicate that with each other and how they learn from each other with that. So again, Clark and Diana's relationship still, whatever story they have, whether it's League of One, Kingdom Come, or Superman and Wonder Woman Volume One and Two, it's still about them communicating and um and just understanding each other.
Exactly. And by the way, Brit, yeah. So here's volume one right here. Clark finds out his girlfriend's the god of war, and he wants to understand her. Not be a poor boyfriend, Tomasi.
Right. And again, also it's so easy to kind of pinpoint when a writer wants to separate them,
Hmm.
when they turn around, like it'll be the same situation, but at this point they can communicate and work it out. But this writer wants to make it a problem, you know so it's a back and forth thing with the writers. But again, to have this story of sacrifice where Diana, she knows that killing is a last resort. She says in New 52, War is a last resort. Um, and even in Kingdom Come, it's all, going to the extremes of certain things. You know what? Even Frank Miller had, even in his harsh world of Diana being a little bit more like an all-star Batman, when she felt like she was going to give the Justice League a chance to, go after Batman and kill him, in a sense, that she will go after him and do it herself. But obviously she didn't do it. Um, but even that, how that sort of tension or whatever that Clark and Diana had, they ended up with two children together anyway. So
Mm-hmm.
even with that kind of world, with Frank Miller's world being so harsh and just everyone is kind of antagonistic towards each other, but Clark and Diana obviously have some type of open communication of understanding each other within that world. So why can't, again, and with that comparison to Sacrifice, that even makes Sacrifice a little bit worse, you know,
Mm-hmm. There's a lot
so
that makes Sacrifice worse. So yeah, so we're gonna continue on. So now we're getting to the review section, but before that, I found something, Brit. You're gonna love this. This just came across my Twitter. So this makes Wonder Woman 16 even worse. Do you know how Detective Chim found the Sovereign's address? It was
I
left in Steve Trevor's car.
his car.
Steve Trevor's car. That pause is all I gotta know. And then someone actually commented something really funny. So someone said that like reading Tom King's Wonder Woman is like being on a bad app. Is like, hang on, I'm gonna find it. It was really funny. But yeah, so here we go. Hang on. Let's see. Reading Tom King's Wonder Woman feels like having a fever dream on a bad acid trip. And then I commented while standing on hot coals. That's what it feels like. Because what the hell is this? The other thing. Not only does he talk to a journalist, he also how was his address left in Steve Trevor's car?
You know,
You could
wow.
say that like Steve Trevor was like investigating the Sovereign, but how would if Steve Trevor knew the Sovereign's address, why didn't he just give it to Diana so she could take him down now?
I and honestly,
But
if Sol
I love how when I told Brit, she just goes, his car.
you know,
This is
I'm
why
I'm
I
I'm
say
not gonna
this run is going to be known as like the worst run, one of the most forgettable at best, worst at worst Wonder Woman runs of all time.
I'm honestly at a loss of words because that just kind of threw me with having an address in the car. But it also raises more questions because if Sovereign has a mansion, around and he's supposed to be like a secret king, how come no one knew about this secret king with a big mansion wherever it's supposed to be?
Shh, Britt, don't question it. Just read it. That's all Tom King wants you to do. Just read it. Don't question the. I hesitate to use this word because it's something that at no point can describe the Tom King's Wonder Woman run, but I'm just going to use it. Oh, 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 I'm actually fake stuttering. I want to be clear on this. I'm doing it this for the bit. Logic. I know it's really hard to use the word logic when describing this run, but oh my god. Continuing on. So we got an actual pretty good issue of Absolute Superman. I'm going to tell you that right there. So when I was reading this, first off, I love the helmet that Laura has when she has the spacesuit on. Oh my, that reminds me so much. Remember in Superman Unchained, where he's in that dope armor?
That or Diana having the absolute Diana having her helmet on.
Yeah, I'm like, the whole thing just looks so badass. And yeah, the fact that like Clark is like a big writer, I really like that. I love the art. The art is great. And the fact that Clark actually exposes the Science Council trying to save only the rich people. Like even when he's still a kid on Krypton, he is still Superman.
Right. And also, if you want to have like the my mom made my suit,
Yeah,
Laura
this
makes
is
the suit.
literally that.
Um, I love how Laura basically she's still in the spotlight. This is basically her book. At least for these issues of uh, the Krypton flashbacks, but it really emphasizes her importance. New 52 did the same thing, and it shows how, again, the main verse, you know, fans want to give the main verse so um, this high praise, but we see only in small Elseworlds or New 52 how Laura is given respect. It's always her hanging mute and hanging on Jarrell's shoulder. We don't see her as a scientist. We don't see her as a fighter often. So I really appreciate that. Another thing is how how a lot of anti-Super Wonder fans say Clark and Diana look alike siblings or whatever because black hair, blue eyes or whatever. Yeah, Jarell and Laura, black hair, blue eyes. Wouldn't they say the same thing about them?
I know. It's just
I'm just saying, but no, they wouldn't because they feel like they are, together as who they are. But just saying like the double standards of DC fans, um, there are just some things that you see within these Elseworlds that is kind of like you have a problem with it with certain ideas that's doing the same thing and maybe even a little bit better or the same way, but you heavily criticize one thing, but you praise another. Or even like with Lois having powers right now. The only reason why Superman fans are okay with it is because they know that it's temporary. But other than that, they feel like, it's basically stepping on Superman's toes or whatever, and he's supposed to be the um the savior in carrying the love interest.
yeah, exactly. But it's like even with this and the cape, everything is just so cool because this issue was almost entirely on Krypton, which I was fine with that. I really felt like they needed more time on Krypton. I like how the suit can like turn to a gun and it has like all this programmable matter,
Right,
and the more I read this, I was like, okay, this is pretty much like saving my fandom for Superman.
right. Yeah, because the main verse is a bore. And also the established uh of Clark being or Cal being a writer when he's young and being a fighter just like his mom, that really establishes him as the hero, as you said, Superman already as a kid. You know, that also emphasizes how he doesn't need Lois to be Superman. And it's so funny that there's a lot of tweets, or there's one particular tweet saying that there's no Superman without Lois. Like you can't have a Superman story without her. And it's like, yeah, yes you can, because even with here, she might have been in the story, but she's a one of the oppressors as a I guess she's a police officer and being the antagonist. But the main focus has not been her. The main focus has been Krypton and young Cal.
Exactly. And I really dig that. I would also like maybe a Laura book later. That might be actually really cool. But honestly, if I got to rate this, gives a solid 9 out of 10. Solid story, solid art, emotional story. And it's overall, actually, yeah, pretty dope. And obviously, the cape. We've talked about how much we love this cape. And it's just more. I love where Clark goes, What are you gonna do, Mom? And then she just basically locks and loads a giant gun and goes, I'm gonna go save your father. And then she emerges in this dope ass suit. Yeah, I'm like an absolute Superman. I'm cool with this. So we've talked about something we like. Let's talk about something we loathe. Tom King's Wonder Woman. So, by the way, he posted about Wonder Woman on Instagram.
Oh wow, it's kind of like burning ears.
Yeah, he posted about Trinity because he posted an image from one of the backups, and it's like one of the backups of like Robin teaching Trinity how to like tie her shoes. And I'm debating. I'm like, do I do this? Do we release the hashtag? Actually, you know what? No, don't release the hashtags yet because we have to save the moment. Save it until because the plan is for people when the next issue of Wonder Woman launches, because he'll have to post it. We will flood the comments with the hashtag because that's it. Because that way people will be talking. No, do not attack King personally. Attack his run, not the writer. I want to be clear on this. That's the plan.
Yeah, okay, so one thing, I have a lot of questions now for this run. Trinity is 5 years old and Diana never taught her how to tie her shoe. She's being taught a lot of things from specifically Robin. And, you know, if you were going to have like the book be of akin to or an homage to the Silver Age, I guess that was the Silver Age of Wonder taught, Wonder Girl, and Wonder Woman. Why isn't Trinity Wonder taught? Why is she Robin, like a Robin?
Because he really wants to write Batman. That's why.
Yeah, and
here's the thing. I was also talking to Robert about this. By shout out to Robert because he'll be joining Comics League. It's why are we adding another Wonder Girl?
Because Tom King wants royalties.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Trinity probably won't even last long, but also, I mean, Tom King doesn't even know how to write his own OCs, so trying to write established characters is very difficult for him, and especially with Yara, because it seems like, and I see a lot of tweets of criticizing that he goes into racial stereotypes with her. So
yeah, like she because here's the thing about Tom King, every character ends up being either drunk or swearing. And yeah, it's like, oh, you guys missed when Joelle Jones was writing Giara Flor now, aren't ya?
Yeah, I mean, she didn't do any better, honestly.
Actually, here's the interesting thing. Joelle Jones writes Wonder Woman.
You know, that would actually be interesting. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
She probably can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now I'm very interested to see.
Because this way, remember, she was in the DC documentary talking about how much she loves Wonder Woman, and they literally show her omnibuy of Wonder Woman.
Okay, so maybe she can be a possibility of, but she's friends with King, so you know.
That is true, but
I don't know if she would agree to kind of
King claims to. Well, here's the thing: King claims to be friends with everyone.
Okay, yeah, that is true.
So you know what? I'm not believing. I mean, they're friendly, but I don't think they're friends to the point where she would be King 2.0. I don't think that. But even on this, okay, so to talk about this, by the way, Brit, here's what I was talking about earlier, where and this is after she says, "I ate my rat here." So the Sovereign opens the door and she has a rat on her leg. So that's what tells me that maybe that part was wrong. But even if it was wrong, the part about that really gets really stupid is when Diana viscerally describes like eating the rat.
Yeah, I honestly, Tom King's trauma, he can keep it to himself.
Yeah, I'm
I
like, but the part that really pisses me off, and this is why I did a post about this, when Diana and Hippolyta are like pouring their hearts out to their daughters, they punch him in the face. What is
yeah,
this? I'm like, he better stop telling people that he bases his these characters off his daughters, because then I'm getting a little concerned.
right.
Or like
Well, his
or
daughters.
like he puts a lot of his wife into Diana, because if that's, why are you punching her?
Well, he said the same thing about Selena that
Yeah,
people
when,
need to.
and then he made like an alternate continuity. Selena killed the Waynes.
Yeah. Oh God.
Do you know what else he did? He had Bruce Wayne actually be suicidal, and his his way of committing suicide was being Batman.
Yeah. That. Okay. Tom King needs to get off these books like this.
It's like, oh my god.
He also had Clark use Jenny Sparks as a rebound for getting over Lori, which has never been a thing.
That Jenny Sparks book is flopping, by the way. So, oh, he also included anti-Muslim stereotypes in that book. So,
Yes.
why is that okay? Maybe we should cancel Tom King. That's the next hashtag. So, so the thing about this, so I've had a lot of discussions on the channel about this particular topic. I want to have this with Brit now. Assuming Tom King's Wonder Woman ends soon, because I still don't think it's gonna last through 2025. I'm fairly certain mid to late 2025 they'll announce a new writer. That's normally the way it works with Wonder Woman. And she normally, honestly, with Wonder Woman, I don't see he's not going to reach 100. The max I think he reaches is 50. That's about the consensus. The minimum is 30. So if 30 to 50 is around where I think he drops off.
Yeah, I'm in that same.
Which would be hilarious, because then if he says he want to do a 100 issue run, I'm like, well, you did 30, and that's a little less. Yes, I'm gonna be a total pretentious asshole when he leaves the book.
Yeah, 100 issues. That is very selfish, and especially how I just don't see how you can do a 100 issue run and you don't even like the character. Like
It's because ego, ego, ego,
it
ego.
is, and trying to compete with one of the golden standard run for Wonder Woman, and not only that, but the thing is, what you said earlier about Tom King saying that he read Wonder Woman books, I honestly
He
believe
clearly didn't.
he didn't read them in a sense of understanding and to honor the history. He read them, quote unquote, in order to find something that he might disagree with and do the total opposite of it. You can, as I've done with the comparisons of Tom King's run and Perez run. Okay, so take Steve. Steve was just a father figure or a big brother. He even said that he loves Diana like a little sister. Okay, has he done in his run, Tom King? He's overemphasized Steve to be like this one and only love interest. That Diana, seeing how in Perez he wasn't really needed as her motivation to be who she was. It was the contest. You know, she won the contest and she was Wonder Woman before older Steve crash landed and everything like that. She also was named, after Diana Trevor and everything like that. But Tom King it feels like he's going overboard with his own like correction of that he wants Diana to um have just that romantic connection with Steve, and her motivations and her purpose in being Wonder Woman is just because of Steve. Also the whole soul thing, knowing that the souls of um the mother and daughter or unborn baby, to have Hippolyta and Diana's relationship, or even Julia and Vanessa's relationship. He is trying to, in a sense, he feels like he can do better than what Perez did. And it's kind of
And I'm
like,
like,
no,
I'm sorry, bro. Well, if you're trying to do better, you are utterly failing, brother.
right, yeah. So I feel like a lot of these plot lines that Tom King is trying to do, yeah, you can compare them to plot lines that we've seen in Perez and see how Tom King is trying to what he feels like a correction. So it can be with Steve, it can be Diana and Trinity, it can be like the new Julian and Vanessa, but of course awful. As uh not very mother and daughter, that whole thing. Or the fact that Hippolyta and Diana had such a close relationship, of protecting each other, and then what you emphasize on of Diana being this rebellious, teenage spoiled little teenager and punching her, you know. So things like that. It's the same thing as what Tomasi did with Superman and Wonder Woman. He felt like he needed to correct what Sewell established.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so continue. And so the other thing that I think is interesting. So for expectations after, here's what's probably going to happen. This is the most likely scenario because Brit and I can say for until blue in the face what we want to happen. Because really, if we had our way and we could do whatever we wanted, this whole run would be retconned like rebirth style, like completely. But unfortunately, editors are not going to want to do that. So the way they're probably going to handle this is after King leaves, the next writer, what they could do is they could use the next series to like retcon and reveal things, like say that like Diana asked Nubia to go find the Amazons and get them all out of America and to Themyscira while she deals with the Sovereign, because that would handle our first criticism of Diana doesn't do anything about the Sovereign. Second off, what they're probably going to do, they'll retcon out some stuff, but I think what they're probably going to do, in terms of Trinity at least, what they'll do is they'll try another series without Tom King. Because here's the thing, if they just like drop the character after, assuming the Tom King series flops, that doesn't necessarily say it's anything wrong with the character. It could be just the character's handling with this current creator, because that happens all the time where like a writer creates a character, they're crappy people, and then another writer comes in and actually makes a good character out of it. So that's probably what they're going to try first. They'll only try it once. I think they'll only try it once. The next writer, if they can't resuscitate Trinity, which, let's be honest, I think enough damage has been done, they're not going to be able to save this character, they will shelve her. As to how they will shelve her, I think, well, Robert and I came up with a cool way they could do it. Is, remember how like Jason, Diana's brother, was like put in an alternate dimension? He shows up and Diana says, listen, I can't run, it's too dangerous for me to have a daughter, and just gives Trinity the baby to him. He takes her and raises her in that dimension. That way, if any writer wants to reference her, they can. If they don't, we can just pretend she doesn't exist. But here's the thing, though. If in the next series they don't reference. So the next series, so we're assuming that Diana's gonna leave Trinity on the island when she's not like when she's on like a Justice League thing or when she's dealing with her own stuff, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna be suspicious that they have completely eliminated the character if in the next run when Diana goes to the island, she doesn't reference having a kid.
I mean, even now, Diana is on the Justice League, and there's
Yeah,
no
but the
indication.
character just got created. That's why I'm like, wait a second for the if they don't reference that and in Wonder Woman they don't, then I'm gonna be like, okay,
I mean,
they're trying to forget Trinity ever existed.
of course, Mark Waid doesn't even want to. He thinks of the characters as um still a Silver Age mindset he
Hmm.
has. So of course he's not going to reference Trinity. That's out. But anyone else, I just don't know. I don't think that honestly a lot of Tom King's like his stories are never referenced outside of the book that he's writing.
I wouldn't be surprised if they later say, "Oh, this was like an Elseworlds Black Label thing."
Yeah, I honestly they will probably treat it as Azzarello's Wonder Woman run.
Yeah, if they want to reference something from it, I don't know why you would, but you can. But we're not gonna like say this is a sequel to it. I will also say what would be a smart move is if the next writer, if they restart the series at number 1, because that way you can have a firm end point and say, no, this is not you cannot you can say this is not continuing it's not a continuation of King, it's a new story.
Exactly.
The other thing what I would do, immediately do an origin story like Superman Secret Origin of Birthright, because if you do that you can also inadvertently retcon out the punching mom thing.
Honestly, because that was in a Trinity special, no one is gonna reference that.
They
And
they
no one
could they
sees
could. Well, honestly, here's the thing. Here's the great part about being fans and of a character that like Wonder Woman. I'm just gonna treat this entire run like an Elseworld story,
yeah,
personally.
yeah, that's basically
That and Brit, that's what I think the Wonder Woman fan base is gonna do. They're gonna forget this run ever happened, unless DC references her having a baby. They're even gonna deny that Diana even has a baby.
well that is why, like you said, they have the clay origin instead of I mean, would we actually want to see Diana pregnant throughout her
But at
run?
least yeah, and I know that would I know what that would be like, but I'm saying that would convince me that they are committed to the character. The very fact that they make it so easily reversible is something where I'm, because it's much harder to reverse if she was the biological daughter of Steve and Diana. It's not like Steve and Diana haven't slept together before, so it's like so if you do so the very fact that they're putting loads of like separation between the two shows me that they're like not wholly committed to the character, or it doesn't,
Right,
even if it's not intentional, it looks like they're not committed to Trinity.
right. And I mean, issue 14 was supposed to be like this grand, most important issue ever. They didn't even
Backlash.
have they didn't even have not even a special like cover for Steve or anything like that. And with
Oh, and
showing
by the
the
way, you would think the collector's market would have pounced on it because the first appearance of the daughter of Wonder Woman.
exactly and second
Because
printing
normally the collector's market supports all this.
exactly. So with that being well, again, with that all that being said and all of this basically piling up as evidence that Trinity seems like a very temporary character. It's just Tom King thing. And I
Yeah,
think that
and that's honestly, Brett, I could see this being a scenario where he can say this was the plan all along. But what if Trinity is only supposed to exist in the Sovereign story or in his run? Like it's a very self-contained character.
Of course, because honestly, I mean, take John. Outside of a few appearances, maybe on covers or something like that, John has not been referenced. And even Williamson's Superman run, he has not actually been referenced. Action Comics, only a couple of times with Mark Waid's story so far, but he's not prominent at all.
But even
He's
on that,
barely on things.
even with that, you're talking about an adult, a baby.
But I mean, whether a baby or even if they do some type
I
of
do
weird,
I do not think they're gonna bring in future Trinity because I think DC knows that people hate future adult Trinity. The only time that people actually like Trinity is when she's a kid or the teenager in the backup. So that's some people, but they had almost universal hatred when Trinity first showed up in 800.
true. But even let's think of it hypothetically. Even
Yeah.
if they do, it's still the fact of they don't want like the the whole thing of the Trinity, especially having kids, is just not what every writer wants, especially when you have like a Justice League book or anything like that. They want them to be child free. Even the status quo of the marriage, with Superman, it's a back and forth thing constantly with editorial. And some people have given up because editorial is lazy and they don't want to um, do anything actually creative. And if you don't have the marriage, you also like, what's the point of Lois? So that's something that has to
There is
stay.
no point, but I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's something that has to stay. And it's just like what they're used to. Um, but yeah, a lot of these things limits the characters and they don't want that. I mean, that's pretty much why Batman didn't they didn't go through with the Bat marriage. Because they felt like that would be limiting to Batman, uh, whether they wanted him with a love interest, as Tom Taylor is doing in Detective Comics, having him with
Uh,
Joe Chill's daughter.
that
You know,
run, I'm starting to miss Ram V on Detective Comics.
just think random things like that, even though it really doesn't mean anything too much, but just random hookups or whatever like that. They want to be free to do things. And with Superman already having that limitation, it just scares off, other writers and other editors. So with Wonder Woman 2, like we've said, they already don't really care for her character as a whole. So it's pretty much why Tom King probably is getting his way. And the fact that he's friends with James Gunn, they feel like he's this top writer, or because he's working within the DCU, so he's throwing his weight around probably. But honestly, if we look at the history, Tom King's books aren't referenced. You know, even
Exactly. Or they're definitely not referenced, and his original characters oftentimes are not used ever again. There are
right,
some times where that happens, but it's extremely rare.
right. I mean, even with Gotham Girl and her brother,
They
it's
killed her brother.
yeah. Um, see, she was in a few issues afterwards, but that she's long gone. Like I said, the Beckett marriage, as soon as Tom King was booted off the book, they brought in Tinian to break up Selena and Bruce. Um,
Off panel, by the way, they did it like it's literally Brit. They're together at the end of the Tom King run. And then literally the next issue, the beginning of the Tinian run, he is alone and Selena is in a very passionate physical relationship with someone else. And I'm like, That's what tells me. Don't tell me that if a writer doesn't want to go completely away from what King does, they won't.
Right. So, then again, we've said Heroes in Crisis, where they really try to
They retcon that
reverse
out of continuity
exactly.
practically.
And yeah, just anything that Tom King has written, it's not, like I said, it's not really referenced. It's not
And
something that they want to go
they
back to.
just reference Supergirl in Woman of Tomorrow in action, but I think that's all. But it could be because of the movie.
Yeah. And honestly, I would say that's kind of unfair because out of all the Supergirl stories, because you're friends with Tom King, that doesn't warrant letting him have, adapt his own story. Um, I don't know. That just seems kind of like very biased. And especially when, um, yeah, you probably want in appearance wise, which again is unfair, a comic accurate looking Supergirl. But if you already had like, I believe the story that was referenced for DCEU Supergirl was, I think it's called Being Super,
Mm-hmm.
and that was an original story out of continuity, and it would have been Sasha Kaye. That would have been something different. But to have James Gunn with his circle of friends, so he's casting a lot of his friends. He's giving projects to his friends and everything like that. I just feel like that's not fair. So with giving Tom King this clout because he's friends with him and he likes his writing, okay, sure, you can like his writing, but at the same time, that's a bad thing because you're warranting things that fans of a particular character are very vocal to not liking. And especially with Wonder Woman, because now it's a feeling of Tom King wanting to throw his weight to basically feel like he has ownership of the character and he has a say.
No, you don't. You never will. The fans will revolt. If it's Here's the thing: the fans are going to revolt if they reference his crappy run. And again, you could say that DC could take it as even like bad attention is attention or something like that. But I'm like, yeah, but let me put it this way: the sales are still going down. They're not going down like massively, like in the case of Super Sun. Sorry, Tavia, but they are going down, and I feel like eventually. Because here's the thing: we still have a lot of different issues, and then I guarantee. Here's the way these books normally go. Yes, once they start going down and the momentum is down, guess what's going to happen? Eventually, the writer will write something that will royally piss off everyone, and then it will drop like a stone in water.
Yeah.
And then you know what? Then definitely they remove him off the Wonder Woman book. And honestly, here's the thing. Here's what DC see the reason why we're stuck in this situation because DC does not altogether own the rights to Wonder Woman. They still split it with the Marston estate, and they have to publish a Wonder Woman book because otherwise they would have canceled her book and she would have been in like showing up in other people's books for right now. I guarantee you, if they didn't have to publish Wonder Woman books, they would have canceled her after Clune and given them a break. But unfortunately, now we're stuck with this. What I can see them doing, because they are allowed to like take a break, what they could do, even if they don't have a writer now, depending on how long they're allowed to go for a break without Wonder Woman, they can just cancel the book right now, give it a couple of months off to like separate, even if just to separate it for, even if they don't retcon anything out, just to give the fans a couple of months to like recover from King, and then they go in and do a different writer. Now,
And
Brit, what writers do you think would be worse than King if they replace this person with if they replace King with like blank?
worse, oh, definitely Tomasi is number one. Um, Dan Jurgens.
I don't think
Even Su-
I don't think Jurgens would write Wonder Woman.
you know, I mean, I think that he would probably write her just to spite her. You know.
True. I think Vita Ayala's one. Stephanie, no, Leah Williams. She's writing the horrible Power Girl
Power
book.
Girl. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. Jazia Axelrod, who wrote the crappy Hawk Girl book. I would say no. Who would be who I would replace them with? I made a list, and you can tell me what you think about this. And honestly, here's the thing: ignore what they think about Steve Trevor or anything like that. Just take it on the way they wrote Wonder Woman during their time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So because that's what we have to realize, because it could also be, first off, the writer who did the new Amazon's Attack series that's going on right now, that's the most likely scenario, because what they could do is even use her as like a temporary writer until they find a permanent one, because she is part, and she's always been like using her series to like add context. But here's my list. G. Willow Wilson. Her run was pretty good. Average, but good. And this is assuming that all these writers are available and want the work. G. Willow Wilson. This next one I never thought I would say. Greg Rucka. Because at least you know what you're getting. And at least yes, you're going to get some Batman, Wonder Woman stuff. They're not going to allow, it's keeping me from going, oh God, is I know DC's not going to allow him to turn Wonder Woman into a Batman love interest. They're never going to do that.
Right.
They're never. Charles Sewell, for obvious reasons. Jason Aaron, the guy that's writing Absolute Superman, and Brit. So you were praising how he wrote Lara. Imagine that for Diana.
Honestly, I can see it.
And
Because
Brit, if you want a good series that he wrote that would basically indicate how he would write Diana, read his run on the Mighty Thor, because he did the story where like female Thor was created, and it was Jane Foster Thor that they did in the Thor movie, but he did it well. Actually, just read his Thor book in general, because he does a lot with like the mythology of the character that's actually pretty cool.
okay, well, that's another thing on my reading list.
Yeah, exactly. And then Stephanie Williams.
And Stephanie Phillips.
And Stephanie Phillips, yeah, because I'm like, okay, you know what? See, here's what I was thinking. The next Wonder Woman writer doesn't have to be like the greatest thing in the world. Doesn't have to write the greatest run in the world. If they wrote an average run, I'd be like, oh, this is the greatest thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, DC, they're going for very cheap and safe with everything. But at least have a decent enough person who cares for Diana. You know, the fact that Tom King, from his very first interview, said basically he basically wanted to turn it down because he doesn't want to write Diana. He just doesn't. And the only reason why he took the offer was his one-sided beef or his self egotistical challenge or whatever with Perez. And he felt like this is the opportunity for him to have his I want the Super Sons to babysit another hero's kid, you know, but it has nothing to do with Diana as a character, appreciating her. And then he says this whole thing, well, I'm writing this to show how awesome Diana is. Okay,
You're doing a
no,
crappy job of that. By the way,
right.
so he also wanted to make people like Steve Trevor. He has now made it where Steve Trevor, I now have the same amount of hatred for Steve Trevor that I have for Lois Lane. You have done the complete opposite of that, brother.
Exactly. And I mean, with Lois and Steve, they're just not at all necessary.
No, they're not. But particularly with this, and actually, I was rewatching my comic story interview a little while back because I wanted to hear what he said about Wonder Woman. And one of the things he said again is like the problem with marrying superheroes or like having them in relationships with non-powered people is that it gets into that, oh my gosh, someone's in danger, I have to go save them. And it'll always eventually go to that. So I'm like, why do I care?
Yeah, to say that it's like high stakes or whatever, no, there's no stakes, especially when you know that they're going to end up saving them and it has to
It's
be a
like
happy ending.
it's like when I had comics explained on my show by no hate to Rob. I love Rob. But then when he said, I didn't like Superman and Wonder Woman because there's no stakes there. And I'm like, there's no stakes with Lois.
Actually, if you again read the story, Clark and Diana's relationship is very,
It's very
has high
stakey.
stakes.
I stood up for it. I stood up for it, Brit.
Because
But I'm like, you want to talk about stakes? No one can do harm to Lois because Superman will always save her.
right, and with Clark and Diana's relationship, you are like hitting. First of all, if they have a public relationship, as Superman and Wonder Woman, but also as Clark and Diana, there's the secret identity of Superman and Wonder Woman, Clark and Diana. If that's it's much more difficult to hide. And second, the knowing that these two powerful beings are together, you are going to have bigger threats. And you have now the weight of the world on both of them and how they are to deal with that. And you also have, these different cultures in a sense coming together. You have the gods, you have the Amazons, and I wish we could have had that in the New 52 of Clark dealing with the Amazons or interacting with them. Then you have the,
Remember, we did. He punched one through a volcano.
I mean, the Amazons
Oh, the
interacting with
Amazons.
them.
Okay. Yeah. That would have been cool.
Um,
Again, that's the one part where I'm like, you really missed it because I would have loved Clark to interact at least with Hippolyta.
right. And then you have where Clark felt like, okay, Zod is Kryptonian, he's part of him in a sense, in a very twisted way, but he's evil and we have to fight him, so that was part of his world that he felt like was a downer in a sense. But to balance that off, you have Diana's world with the gods of Apollo, needing to be punched in the face a couple of times. Um, then you have the mortal world, that's basically judging them or being for or against them as individual um, heroes and as a partnership, and a bonus as a relationship, a romantic relationship of how the world um, feels like it has something to say, that the world needs to give their opinion about their relationship and how to deal with it. So yeah, the stakes are very high with Clark and Diana, more so than with an ordinary love interest. And the thing is, with an ordinary love interest, they emphasize on normalcy to get away from the high stakes anyway. So yeah, it's a lot of contradictions there to say.
Exactly. So yeah, and that's the thing. So now let me ask you this, Brit. Let's say DC brought you in and you have to take over Wonder Woman after Tom King.
Mhm.
You cannot just offhandedly retcon everything away. I know that's going to be your answer, so I want to actually make this a challenge because obviously let's be honest, editorial is not going to let you do that. If I were
Okay.
I should become the head Wonder Woman editor, and then I would be like, oh, actually, editorial is. But anyway, and if someone messes with me, I'll just show them the picture of Wonder Woman saying I ate my rat, and I'm gonna say, yeah, we're retconning this away. Go back to doing a sketch, Jim Lee. But anyway, uh, so you can't retcon it all away.
Okay.
Go.
So what I would do is because the last of lies someone, I would say Diana, even though I don't like it, she would have to be locked up in the prison cell or whatever she was, still in the lasso of lies. And somehow,
But she broke it.
I mean, you're, she's dreaming or something. We have to
Okay.
make this work somehow.
Okay.
Um, because if you're going to introduce a lasso as that to be something important, yeah, it shouldn't be easily broken. So somehow it has to be a dream, or she feels like she has, you know, her breaking it could be a lie. So we're just gonna go with
Oh.
that. You know,
Ooh. I like that.
yeah, we're gonna go with that.
Mm-hmm.
So she's still in it, and I would say, you know, how Wonder Woman evolution, how Diana was actually stuck in like this laboratory or whatever. So take that of how she was basically in an illusion the whole time, but it's much better than how Rebirth did it. And Diana's actually trapped somewhere with the lasso
But
tied.
remember, I said you can't retcon the run out.
It's not retconning it. It's basically saying that it is part of the lasso of lies.
But
However,
that is retconning it.
is it? I'm
It
trying to
retconning is eliminating it from continuity.
I'm trying to make it where it still has to do with the sovereign, is basically making Diana feel like everything that she's done, she has done it in reality, but literally she's just been dreaming. You know,
Okay. I'll entertain it. Go on.
um so let's see.
Now, how would you work with Trinity?
Okay, with Trinity, she's straight up Emily's daughter. And what it would be is that, again, I'm trying to make this fit within stories that past stories that Wonder Woman has had to deal with these certain things,
Mm-hmm.
is that she's said to be Diana's daughter only for her protection of Emily, because Emily did give birth to her. Diana, I still believe that she should be Diana's mentor. And even though she was a little antagonistic towards Diana, and but she still felt like in reality, Emily wanted to push Diana to be the best she could be as a warrior. And as
As far as
a
we know, that could be the whole story.
yeah, especially with their battle. So
Mm-hmm.
with that, because Emily maybe was SA'd, or she got into, she
By the
kind of became
Sovereign.
by this, even though that is totally just gross, but we're gonna keep it going. Um, and she became a rogue Amazon, where she ends up unalived. But before she became unalived, she did give birth to Trinity. And in order to protect her from the Sovereign, she asked Diana, "Could you raise my daughter and raise her as your own?" So, just as Hippolyta wanted to protect Diana from Hera, you know, she, with knowing that Diana was Zeus's daughter, she said that use the clay origin, So with this, it's the opposite of, she's Emily's daughter, grossly with the sovereign, but to protect Trinity from the sovereign, she says that um no, she that is how she was created, by clay, and Diana created her. That is the only way I can see that working.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
Um Steve, I'm sorry. He
Wait, wait,
has to
wait,
be.
wait, wait, wait. Repeat the clay thing again.
So in order for um Sovereign not to know that Trinity is his daughter,
Mm-hmm.
Diana, she makes Diana is the one who makes up the story that she is the one who created Trinity from clay.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Steve
Oh.
is not a part of it.
Oh yeah, that's the one thing I'm pretty sure they will, or at least retcon, is that they'll take Steve's whole involvement out.
Yeah, but we know for sure that she is Emily's daughter. It's just that for, again, for Trinity's protection. And that's the only way that could work and make it more meaningful and still connecting with Wonder Woman as, you know, her history. Anything else? The Amazons being secretly or whatever in the US the whole time. Yeah, that's getting retconned. I'm
They do
sorry.
explain that, by the way, in the Amazon's Attack series.
They do. That is so okay. So that's taken away Diana being special because the whole purpose is for the Amazons, most of the Amazons, or all of them to be on the island, and Diana is the one who, um, you know, decides to become the Amazon, Themyscira's champion to come to man's world and bring the Amazons closer to man's world. So I don't really like that at all because
Mm-hmm.
it just it feels like writers and editorial they want to take away what makes Diana special
Mm-hmm.
because they see even Nubia. You know, I appreciate the representation of having her as the um, prominent, you know, black Amazon and giving her that respect. Making her queen the way it happened, I don't like because you didn't have to kill Hippolyta, especially if you made her a goddess, but you haven't done anything significant with that.
They have. She's one of the goddesses that gives Mary Marvel her powers.
Yeah, I know, but I'm saying like, can we show a little bit more of uh Hippolyta doing something, you know,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just used for another character. That's what I'm saying. Like,
True.
at
True.
least
Okay.
let it benefit her, not some other character. Um, then with Diana, it just feels like within, I would say, Infinite Frontier, it was like DC wanted to really push Nubia and other Amazons or yeah, Mary Marvel or something like or even Yara. They wanted to push those characters more than they wanted to push Diana. And that what makes her special and what makes her Wonder Woman the main character, they want to put her purpose to other characters. And it's the same way of how they wanted to do John, you know, of the 5G storyline of Clark becoming authoritative and, you know, a dictator to where you have John be the modern Superman, you know. But again, stop throwing Clark and Diana under the bus for other characters. So with this King run, it's just yeah, the only way you can make this work is if the lasso of lies is the main factor of Diana is stuck in a big illusion. And that's not necessarily retconning things. That's just explaining why stuff is so wonky.
Yeah, that is true, and it would kind of explain like a few things. It's just the problem with it is that this book is very sloppily like written,
I
and
mean,
yeah, go ahead.
he already said that things are red herrings. So that's another thing.
BS.
Yeah, we know. But I'm again, I'm trying to make sense of it and saying that, okay, with what he's saying, it has to be with the lasso of lies. And we've already dealt with Rebirth having Diana stuck in a mental institution. So what more will the lasso of lies do with her being tied with it and stuck in a dream sequence? And again, that still goes within Diana's dream sequence of being a 1950s housewife. So no, it's not so much as retconning anything. It's just again making things it happened, but it just happened in her mind.
That's true. That's true. Or you can make and see. Here's what I have a couple of ways that I would work with this. The way I would do it is, all right. There are a couple of ways you could do this. Number one, the Diana that emerges from the cell that like Sovereign just drops off is a construct, not the real Diana. In other words, she's still stuck in the cell. That way, it still happens in continuity. You don't have to explain all that, but it just happened. But because here's the thing, Brit, the one hole with your it all happened in her head is then how was if Diana was in the prison the entire time, who was in absolute power?
You know what? I didn't even factor that in.
Yeah, so that's why I said if you want to make it so that wasn't Diana, construct. Like she's an artificial construct.
You have to do some. You have to do basically mental gymnastics because I mean that's the same question you have for Rebirth of how was Deathstroke and Clark being or um Hesha from Themyscira if Diana has never been back on Themyscira for 10 years of Rebirth. You know, it's a lot of mental gymnastics we have to do for these stories because with Tom King and in general of DC writers, it feels like they are putting plot over character instead of the plot making sense for the character.
Yeah. So here's the thing. My other way of doing this got shut down the minute they took Cersei and had her be defeated by a monkey. I would have had Cersei was impersonating Diana. So instead of being a construct, it's just Cersei trying to replace Diana.
Honestly, that I would take that over this being Diana.
And Trinity is actually the daughter of Cersei, but Diana says, "No, I'm gonna adopt you and I will raise you so you don't end up like Cersei."
That would explain Trinity's bad attitude, at least.
Yeah, you can explain that by saying Trinity just found out that Diana's not her mother. And that she's been
Yeah,
lied to about her origin the whole time. So you can use that as like an homage to the Azarello run where Diana found out she was the daughter of Zeus.
yeah. Well, that's basically what I'm trying to connect. Um, and also having a father, because with her saying he's unmissed, but yet you have the plot of her trying to find him, it
Yeah.
that doesn't make sense at all.
That's a lit because I'm like, why would nothing you have said and nothing you have shown in these series indicates why she would want to go find Cersei. I mean, this is Cersei to find Steve. Well, this is same thing as far as I'm concerned.
I
But
mean, going to,
yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's 20 years later. So she's 20 years old and trying to, Diana, okay, if this story is about like if Tom King was trying to have Diana say that she loves Steve and he's the only one she um could ever love and how they confessed or whatever like that, and she created uh or Trinity out of her grief and of caring for Steve. Why wouldn't Diana say who he is? Like why why did that Trinity go all the way to Sovereign to find out who her father is, or quote unquote father is, and telling this long story? I just none of this makes sense. Like, why didn't Diana um tell her? And for the Sovereign to say that this story is supposed to be sad and it's it's a story of revenge. Like what the Sovereign is telling Trinity is going to make her, resent Diana, and it's going to hurt Diana. I just don't understand what in this, within these past 16, 17 issues, was supposed to really hurt Diana.
Mm-hmm. By the way, side note, so you notice how when Diana reemerges from the cave in the 13 backup, and she says, I'm going to use the lasso on him, and then John says, oh, great, it would be great to hear him speak under the lasso of truth. So you mean to tell me that you're interrogating Wonder Woman's arch enemy, and you didn't wrap him with the lasso this entire time?
I
These
believe.
characters, wait, these characters, like with the Sovereign's address being left in Steve's car, these characters are utter morons.
Well, yes, that's basically how Tom
Thanks,
King
Tom
writes it.
King, for making Diana's daughter a moron.
I believe she was actually talking about Damien telling the story, and he wasn't in the
No,
lasso.
no, 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 no. Literally in 13, the 13 backup, because the 13 backup, I mean, it may be 13 or 14. The one, so they emerge. This is in the modern day.
Mm-hmm.
And Trinity says, so Damien says, oh, now we know your origin. And then Trinity goes, I'm gonna use the lasso on him. And then John says, oh, you mean the lasso of truth, right? It'll be great to get him under that. And then Trinity goes, no, the lasso of death. Hang on, I'll even pull it up for you on DC Universe on Infinite. I know the one you're talking about. It's not that one about the Final Crisis thing. This is gonna royally piss you off, Brit. Even more than the series already has. I added that because you're already pissed off with this series. But it's one of those things. It's like showing me that, like, oh yeah, they did a terrible job of hiding adult Trinity because she is like still here. But let me see. So it's 13, I believe. Yep, 13. Okay, hang on. And I used it in a tweet. All right, here we go. So this is Wonder Woman 13. It's Damien saying, so that is how you became you. As I said to your mother at the time, you're welcome. And then Damien says, what? And then Trinity says, I'm going to lasso him. John, good idea. Love to hear this story while he has the lasso of truth around him.
Oh my gosh.
And then Trinity says, not that lasso, the black one, the one of death. And I'm like, Diana's daughter would, if this daughter was really Diana's daughter, she would never jump to the death option.
I despise this run. Like,
You see? No, you see what I was saying, Britt? You see what I was saying?
oh my
So you're
gosh.
telling me this entire story, this is how they could retcon it that she's not even Diana and Steve's daughter. This whole thing was a lie the entire time.
Yeah, and I guess that's why he's saying that the next arc or whatever will be in Diana's perspective, and like what Sovereign has said is a lie.
Mm-hmm.
So why did you spend 20 issues on a lie?
Because Tom King is trying to be the next Alan Moore. And as I've said before, Alan Moore does not even want to be Alan Moore anymore.
Oh, this is such a mess.
Mm-hmm. This entire run is this has to be intentional because there's no way anyone is this inept at writing a story.
I mean, I don't know. Now I'm very speechless because it gives a total different perspective. A very, like I said, you have to do mental gymnastics, but this is more like parkour or something. Like this
Mm-hmm.
is you are turning flips, cartwheels, jumping off buildings and everything to make sense of this run. Um, and also even that page to say that Diana all of a sudden wants asks Damien, and Damien of all characters. Would she be a good mother out of the blue? Like, what does that have to do with anything? First,
Wait. So I'm realizing something. I'm like, wait, is this really them talking about the Sovereign though? Because I know that because it could be just Damien talking about. Wait, this is
that's what I'm
very
saying.
confusing.
That's what I'm saying. It's Damien's perspective.
But still, it's very confusing because I'm like, I what?
Yeah, the whole backup is told
Well,
in
wait,
Damien's
secret
perspective
origin story. Why is Damien telling her the origin story?
because Tom King, Jared.
Fair enough.
It's
Hmm.
that's one reviewer said that it seemed like this was very like last minute, but it seems like what Tom King wanted to do with this was basically put Damien to make it make sense of Damien's connection with Trinity, being a babysitter. So he is telling her a story about, like, again, trying to justify Diana all of a sudden wanting.
But they said that's how you became you.
Damien is implying basically how King is having Diana make out with Steve, like, the whole time.
Oh, he's implying that was just Damien making up that part of the story.
Well,
Then
I
why
mean,
do it?
I,
If you're
you
just
know,
gonna say it didn't happen.
because, I mean, okay, so from issue 12 and issue 13, it just seemed like issue 13 was very much Damien, and trying to build up to Diana confessing or whatever she's doing with Steve. That's what it seemed like, and it just doesn't fit. It's very Tom King in the worst way possible.
It is very. There is no good way to be. It's very Tom King. Trust me.
It's not.
But and by the way, we hit 3 hours, Brit. So
Wow.
yeah. Well, wow. It's 3 hours when you're in pain, huh? So I think that is honestly a good way to leave it. So I think we're gonna leave this one. But yeah. But Brit, where can what stories do you want to tease for us?
Okay, so obviously we're going to hopefully I can have chapter 3 finished by next weekend for our live episode. Um and also a couple of one shots. I'm finishing up one that I told you about where Clark visits the mascara waterfall with Diana. It's gonna be fun. Um More one shots with Austria. And then of course I'm trying to build up my points for
By the way, I love how you literally just put in the SuperWonder Trinity group chat without any context. This run is so shit.
uh,
No context. Jin is probably like, what?
yeah, I had to voice that somewhere because it now I'm kind of thinking about it, and like I said, as a storyteller, it confuses me and it makes me want to like fill in the gaps, but also I have a lot of questions. And yes, this run
Okay,
is
you know
very
what?
much.
I'm asking you this, Britt. We should do a story where literally we just do this run, but better.
Yeah, it's already within the millions of stories we have in the
Hmm.
Shelterverse.
Yeah, that's what we're
But
doing.
yeah, this whole run is Swiss cheese. Like it
Swiss
is.
cheese.
Um but yeah, so a lot of the I've updated a couple of stories, and I have Athens chapter 5 that's halfway done as well. And then more one shots. Austria, I'm picking back up with Austria and doing a two-parter with her. And then another, like I said before, trying to get my points up. So I hope that
I had
this,
2 ideas this episode, Brit.
I know. So it's gonna take me a while to get those points, but um, it's not so much as a sad story. It's very comforting, but it's more along the lines of just it inspired by when I was doing research and with for this episode and just the whole thing of the Shelterverse too, of how Clark and Diana deals with things and how they can really just comfort each other. And it's a little bit more of the last one shot that I did. So this can be basically like a sequel to that. And yeah, just looking forward to sharing our Shelterverse next week.
Oh, yeah, that's gonna be a fun one. Versus, if you will. But
Yes.
because, yeah, when Brit and I go crazy on a story, we go very crazy. As you guys will no doubt see. All right, so stay heroic, everyone. Remember, Lois Lane is Lois Lame, and Steve Trevor, Steve Never. She belongs to General Zod, and he belongs 6 feet underground. Zois and Max about for life. See you later.